Void. Void.
From Alabama, welcome race fans, one and all, back to Green Flag TV. This afternoon, we get set to go racing once again as, boy, oh boy, What a wild night of racing we are in for here on an absolutely fantastic Wednesday afternoon. My name is Little Rambo alongside Austin Edstrom. We're bringing you all of racing action from round number 5 of the Beer League here on Wednesday night. My name is Little Rambo once again, and Austin, boy, it's Barber Motorsports Park, your home track for once, as we get set to go running for round number 5. It is going to be a wild show this afternoon. Again, back to the old 15-minute sprint race, 16-minute main event format. I think we're in for a wild treat this afternoon.
Yeah, my home track that I've never been to, but have driven by about 1,000 times in my life. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the action's actually about. You know, I've never gotten to go to the race, so I'm excited to see what we got in store for us here tonight. All the races this year have been pretty daggum solid, I gotta say. We got some rain in the forecast, gonna throw a wrench into the plans of these guys out here during the qualifying session. So I think we're in for a good one.
Critically, we are running the short A layout this afternoon. There are 2 short layouts outside of the full course. This layout will see us cut right in to the second half of the racetrack, just at turn number 5, straight through the infield, which is going to make for a real interesting race as well. Cutting out half the lap could very well mean we're going to catch lap traffic relatively quickly here in this one. If this race gets spread out, as these Beer League races have tended to do over the last little while. But let's take a look at your point standings. Racing action here this afternoon. This was after the last race down at Mid-Ohio. Scott Fleming now on the top with a 17-point lead on Aaron Thacker, having jumped to the top of the standings. Alex Cover maintains his run in 3rd, tied for the number 2 spot with Thacker. 4th place holds Brooks Clinton with Ron Wolf back in 5th. He's tied with Josh Freed.
Yeah, those beers coming in clutch for Alex Coffer there. You can see he's leading the beer standings, and that is keeping him in the championship hunt so far. You know, obviously he's had the pace to potentially be leading the point standings, but has had a little bit of unluckiness kind of coming his way through the main events, but he's still doing a good job hanging on to that tied for 2nd place position.
A solid run right now for all drivers within the top 10 of this field. Let's take a look now at the teams championships, with Hot Wheels really being on top all season long, right? I mean, they have not shown too much hesitation in getting themselves up to the front, but critically, that gap has started to shrink in. Look at Zero Team 6 jumping up 2. They now stand just 31 points away from the points leaders.
Zero Team 6 not too far off, but also 99 Movies, Flying Donut, Fluorescent Folks, all at least within a shouting distance of the championship lead here for the team's championship. So honestly, no real, nobody's really pulling away too heavily. Hot Wheels does have a decent lead, but it's definitely not insurmountable with the amount of races we have left and the wild card that we got coming next week as well.
Of course, the wild card race. That's your broadcasted choice pick, isn't it?
Woo! Heck yeah, it is.
Well, we'll get into what that's going to entail for these guys further on down the line. Less than 2 kegs consumed so far as we hit the halfway point of the season. A bit surprising the numbers are still so low. One of the lower numbers we've seen throughout Beer League's history. But of course, that takes us straight into qualifying, right? Qualifying very much underway right now on the racetrack. Let's find a driver to ride on board for a lap, because boy, this track is a unique one to get around. How about Chris Flams?
Flams has been pretty quick all season long, so it's probably as good of a pick as any as he comes off the last corner. Dipping 2 wheels off into the grass, probably getting a 1X there, so going to invalidate the lap that he's on right now. But we are seeing the track currently mostly dry, but we're going to be getting some rain here pretty soon in the qualifying session, so you want to get in a good lap as soon as possible. You see one car getting out of the way for Flams here. Long sweeping right-hand corner. Going to be pretty single lane the entire way through there. Going to be tough to make a pass around the outside. Going to want to be tucked right up to the inside curbing, to the inside grass. Flams with a decent run through there, over the crest, over the hill, and then back down into the braking zone. Seeing how tight he is on to the apex. Pretty decent there for Flams, setting himself up for the second part of the chicane. And able to get a good run out of the corner as well. A lot of twisty, turny bits here at this racetrack. A lot of lefts then rights following each other up. So it's going to be tough to get around this place. And you see the rain starting to come down and Flams starting to lose grip.
Oh yeah, that rain started to come down quick into the immediate slip of the grip. And he's actually going to go wide into the grass because he's on slick tires. That's going to be invalidated lap now for Chris Flams. A lot of drivers have been out on the racetrack really trying to get the hammer down early in this one, and for good reason. That rain starting to arrive at the back end of the circuit. It's still dry on this end, and just now the rain started to come down, and look at how quickly that picked up as well. This is Tyler Carlton now working making his way through that middle section of the racetrack. You got guys like Matthew Dupuis that are still trying to pick their way through and get a lap going as well. David Elkin, just ahead of these guys, is in a similar situation.
This is a weird one. I think these guys thought that they had a little bit more time. I'm looking at the weather radar right now, and there's not a band actually over the racetrack just yet. It doesn't look like there's a cloud in the sky from the weather radar, but obviously you can tell it's a little dark here on the broadcast, and we can clearly see the rain coming down. Not quite enough to maybe need the wet tires just yet, but obviously enough to affect the grip on the slick tires like we saw from Flams at the end of his qualifying lap. And given the fact that this qualifying session started out dry, it was a damp-ish track off the racetrack through the grass. Going to be seeing that plenty of times tonight, but this track started as, you know, completely dry almost. Just a little damp from the rain that we had in practice, but it wasn't raining right at the beginning of the session. Now that it's raining already 6 minutes into it, it's going to be tough for any of these guys to actually lay down a better lap time.
Ryan Murphy still doing his darndest. He will improve up to 22nd place, but Alex Coffert up on the top, not showing a lot of signs of improvement right now. And I think you're right. I mean, the fact that we're this far into qualifying and both drivers have set a lap time, I think your grid is virtually set in this one. It's going to be nigh impossible to get an additional time on the boards unless you didn't have a great opener like Matthew Dupuis. He'll go from 29th all the way up to 17th. So far, Antonio Alvarez jumps to 21st to 18th, but nobody else showing any kind of improvements.
Yeah, there's just enough grip out there for some of the guys that didn't lay down a good qualifying lap the first time by to at least be somewhat decent the next time around while the rain is coming down. And there's still parts of the racetrack that aren't getting an absolute ton of rain. And this is a skinny band, so we might see this band of rain come through really quickly, 5-10 minutes, and then maybe the last 3 minutes of this thing will be in the dry again. The racetrack will still be damp, but it's not a heavy rain shower. So we could see the cars push the water off the track and maybe have an opportunity for 1 or 2 laps at the very end. But until then, it's just kind of be staying out on the racetrack and, well, pushing the water to the side, hoping that you get a dry track later.
David Elkin still without a time in this qualifying session. The driver, the number 52, trying to work himself through the last corner now. Get himself back to the front straight away. Whoa, boy. Really pushed in by Chris Bright. How about John Combs? Still managing to improve on a greasy racetrack up to 4th with a purple final sector on the racetrack. And that only puts it within a 1/10 of a second of Coffert's time.
That's kind of incredible. Obviously, you can tell the rain's not super hard, so you know it's not going to completely kill the grip, but I just wouldn't expect you to be able to lay a top 5 lap time down at this point, right? Like you said, only a 1/10 of a second off of Coffert whenever the track was just about dry. I'm kind of surprised. I thought that even just this little bit of a drizzle would make it too difficult to actually lay down a good lap time, but ultimately it's a relatively short racetrack. I think that could play into a lot of these guys' hands, even with it raining. Only 1 minute and 2 seconds to get around. Combs is just skating past one car going sideways, but with the lap being so short, maybe just not enough time to really make a big enough mistake to kill your lap time. I just would have thought in a qualifying session where you're pushing balls to the wall, you wouldn't really be able to improve after the track gets a little greasy. Coffert with the purple sector 2 doesn't go faster on his whole lap, but still laying down good enough sectors to where some guys are gonna. Oh my God, Kyle Blevins! What? It's raining, buddy. Does he have the same rain we have? Because it doesn't look like it.
Kyle Blevins jumping to the top with a 102.11. Eclipses Coffert's time as, oh boy, somebody is doing something. I'm not sure who. Do we want to ask how?
That's your first race winner of the season, Ron Wolf, having a dance party in the fence?
Maybe.
I don't. Okay, well, it looks like the dancing has stopped. How in the world has he managed to get himself stuck there?
I genuinely don't know, and I want to know. That's why we're taking a look at this now. Ah, that'll do it. Straight onto the turn 1, and the rest is history.
Yeah, iRacing's physics model is perfect, guys.
Flawless. I see nothing wrong with this.
The crash physics are perfect. The stuck in the fence physics are perfect. That's exactly what Austin Dillon looked like at Daytona in 2015, right? He just got stuck in it, right? He never came back down.
Verhulst up on the racetrack, working his first flying lap of this 20-minute qualifying session. Just as we hit the halfway point, he's got Ryan Murphy tucked up just behind him. Aaron Thacker, 2 green sectors, and he will not improve on his lap time. I think he improved on his time, just not in his position. Gets within a tenth of Tyler Carlton. Meanwhile, here comes Ryan Verhulst down the pit straight for his first attempt this afternoon. And for Verhulst, does he get on the boards? No, he had an invalidated lap on that one.
And what we were watching Ron Wolf floss with the catch fence. Austin Tucker ran the second fastest lap time of the qualifying session, so there's still at least enough grip out of there to put down decent laps, but we're starting to see in certain sections of the racetrack, like we're watching right here with the 243, there's starting to be some water coming up behind those rear tires. That's whenever you can really tell, as we're watching Austin Tucker go around, that's whenever you can really tell that you're going to start struggling for your grip in certain areas as soon as you start seeing the rooster tails coming off the back of these things. And it's pretty minor still for Tucker, but I would still think that it's going to be unbelievably tough for these guys at this point to be able to lay down a faster lap time. I've been wrong before, though, in this qualifying session, so who knows?
Well, we were talking about it just before this show went live, right, about how this is going to be a very interesting qualifying session to see how these guys manage it. I mean, it hasn't disappointed. There's been a lot of excitement really organized around this qualifying session here. Ryan Verhulst making a second attempt on trying to get a lap in this time. Gets down to the start-finish line to the end of his second lap. And still no dice on the boards.
Yeah, it looked good because he had 3 greens, right? So it looked like he was doing pretty daggum good, but he is a little ways off the front runners so far. Actually, Verhulst's not able to lay down a clean lap time, so he must have gotten a 1X off the track. He has not put in a single lap time just yet, so he's gotten a 1X every single time he's been out there. So it's been a tough sledding for Verhulst. Vietnam, though, 3 greens again, but again, still 2 seconds off the pace of the leaders.
He's getting 35th, so he's at least going to be on the inside road. Jordan Babcock moves up 1 spot into the 25th place entry. And Verhulst, again, trying to see if he's got anything for this field as he works his way through the final series of corners here. He's right behind... Is that Jake Kasich? No, that's not Jake Kasich. I'm not sure what car that is up the road. Might be the 52. Verhulst comes across the stripe. And what's the time? Is it a time? I think it is a time, but only 37th.
That's David Elkin sitting there right in front of him. But yeah, at this point, it's going to be so difficult for you to put down any type of a decent lap time. Verhulst at least getting himself on the board and staying on the racetrack there. But again, everybody's still on the slick tires, trying to run as fast as possible. But obviously, the track is way too greasy at this point to lay down an absolute banger of a lap time. A couple of these guys obviously still going to go for it, still going to try to improve any way they can. But man, you're going to have to be dirt tracking this thing through the corners and hope that it sticks somewhat well, right? I mean, it's basically one big slip and slide out there right now.
Yeah, and the slip and slide, call me crazy, is not the best for lap times. Now, going on the wet tires is not going to be the answer here, because if you need to go on wet weather tires, well, don't even bother. You're not going to get a better lap than what you got in the slick tires, right? So that's why we don't see anybody trying to switch over to the wet tires, because they know right away it's not going to help them any.
Yeah, if you put on the wet tires, that you're just going slower anyway, right? You've basically conceded that you don't have the grip in the racetrack, you don't have the grip in the car to actually be able to do anything. So the slick tires are your best bet to try to lay down one good lap time. Obviously, it's just too wet at this point. I don't think that you're going to be able to see anybody put their car up into the top 10, especially seeing how close the top 10 is as well this week. You know, most weeks, top 10 separated by maybe half a second to a second. This week, top 10 separated by 0.2 of a second in qualifying. Obviously a shorter racetrack, so it lends itself to have those moments, but there's a lot of corners at this racetrack to gain and lose time, so you would maybe expect a little bit more field spread out of that as well. A lot of little chicanes, long sweeping corners to kind of test these drivers every single time around, and obviously with the rain coming down at this point, it's just getting to be a little bit too tough.
I mean, heck, look at the top 15. Separated by only half a second. I mean, that is extremely tight for a qualifying field on a road course, right? I mean, that is something else entirely. We don't often see these fields being that close in these types of race cars. I mean, we've seen that before, right? With stuff like Toyota GR86s or the SCCA Spec Racer Fords. Never, though, in these BMWs. There's always been a bigger spread than that. This could be one of the tighter races that we have on the season.
I think it definitely will be. It'll be interesting to see how the weather plays into affect that whenever we actually get to racing. Obviously, the heat race absolutely going to still have some rain coming down. I'm looking at 80%, 70%, 60% all throughout the heat race of the rain coming down. After that, though, it does start to dwindle under the 50s, and then it kind of runs out of range for me to where I can't see any further to see how it's going to be after about 3 hours time. So I'm not too sure exactly how much rain is going to come, and I'm looking at the radar, and it's still just a bunch of bands coming through, very tiny, small bands with the rain coming down. But other than that, it's not going to be heavy rain. It's just going to be consistent enough to likely keep this track greasy for the most part. But with 40 drivers out there all at once for the heat race, for the main event, they could try this track off pretty quickly if we do have a big gap between bands. And right now, we're about to get out of the band that we're in with 3.5 minutes left. If the rain subsides in the next minute and a half, maybe somebody could lay down a decent lap time right at the buzzer.
I doubt it. I mean, at this point, the track's gotten so greasy, it would take at least another 10 minutes of running just to get it back to the conditions it was at the start of the qualifying session. I think what we've seen right now, that's all we're going to be seeing from everybody. I mean, these guys have been trying, the rain's been ebbing and flowing, but there just has been nothing these guys have been able to do since the first opening selfie.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to concede on that. Less than 3.5 minutes left at this point. I'm looking at the radar still. We are in the middle of a band, but it's, at the very, very tail end of it. So I think the rain will stop by the end of the qualifying session, but to your point, I don't think that we're actually going to get the track dried off in time for anybody to lay down a better time. Just a lot of yellow across the board at the bottom. Even guys like Combs, who puts themselves up front frequently. I mean, 17 seconds off the pace there. You can tell that he ran off the racetrack somewhere. Alex Cofford was multiple seconds off the pace. Chris Flam's 3 seconds off from what he had done, 2.5, excuse me, but nonetheless, it's just way too slick out there for any of these guys to lay down any meaningful bit of a lap time. But I do think this is going to lend itself to a really good heat race, right? Because, like I said, the band's about to end. Time will skip forward a little bit before the heat race. So do you start at the wet tire or do you start on the dry tire, given the fact that we probably won't have any rain at all in between the main event and the heat race, and then it dries off a little bit? But the rain might come back because, like I said, I'm still seeing 80-70% on the precipitation chance. So gonna be a big guessing game whenever it comes to the heat race and what kind of tire you want to put on.
I think if those windshield wipers aren't going, you're running on dries. That's my honest opinion. And right now, there's no windshield wipers on these cars. It's spinning, but I don't think it's really spinning enough to make it worth the time loss.
I feel like I just gotta wait and see what the track looks like, right? Obviously, every time that the time kind of skips forward in between sessions, you get a little bit of a different track. The track dries off a little bit. The track gets a little bit more rain. You just gotta kind of wait and see exactly what the track's gonna look like. Because at this point, like you said, the windshield wipers aren't going, but man, you see the rooster tails popping off of some of these cars. If any more rain comes down after this point, then it's a guaranteed wet race, right? You gotta put on the wet tire, but if you're expecting there to be no rain whatsoever, then you know what? Maybe you take being a little slower at the beginning of the race with the slick tires and just trying to hang on and hope that they end up being good enough towards the end. But it's only a 15-minute race, right? Very, very short sprint to the finish. It'll be interesting to see our different tire strategies whenever we go into it.
60 seconds are left on the clock as the last few times are starting to come in, but they are not going to be times that are going to get these drivers on the top of the board. So qualifying effectively done and dusted here on this Wednesday afternoon. Of course, working round number 5 of the Beer League in their 10th season of competition. Austin, you missed one heck of an exhibition race last week with Rallycross and Formula One cars. I mean, it was something. It was. I told you about this.
When?
Like last week, and then you said, oh no, I can't be there.
Well, I didn't know that it was Rallycross and Formula One cars. I knew I missed it because I was ill last week. I didn't realize they were running Rallycross and Formula One cars on the same track together. That's,
I'll need to show you the highlights of that week. It was...
I will go back and watch the entire broadcast.
It was something. It was something else. Let me tell you what, and it was awesome. It was entertainment to the maximum. Think the ancient Roman Colosseums. It was like those. But anyway,
People
we're
were
ready
killing
to...
each other?
Huh?
People were killing each other?
Actually, yes.
With swords?
We're ready to take a rundown, though, of what this starting grid is going to look like here this afternoon. This is the sprint race coming on up in just a few moments. Kyle Blevins starts his race from pole position. Pro driver Austin Tucker will start from the number 2 spot. From there, you're going to have Alex Crawford, Scott Fleming, Eric Ronenberg, John Combs, Chris Bright, Jake Kasich, Chris Flams, Darren By, Justin Hall, Brooks Clayton, Ringo Harrison, Corey Barrett, Tyler Carlton, Aaron Thacker, Ben Williams, Ron Wolf, Jeremy Castro, and Matthew Dupuis. Continuing on down through the field. 21st place holds Antonio Alvarez with Shane Cameron. Then it's Greg Beckman, Tanner Klein, Jordan Babcock, Barry Piper, Ryan Murphy, Jason Lee, Alexander Bueller, and Carson Kaplan for the top 30. Blake Gamble, Ryan Verhulst, Devin Campbell, Kyle Smith, Austin McColgan, Tyler Vienna, David Elkin, Ethan Condi will be the last driver to put down a time. From there, Giovanni Romano, Tyler Augustino, Adam Klein, and Adam Joseph Mailhot all failed to put down lap times in the 20-minute qualifier.
And now that we're getting into the heat race, I'm looking at the weather. It is 0% chance right now. The track looks really dry, so I think everybody's going to be starting on slick tires. But at the very end of this heat race, I'm seeing a big band of weather coming through that I believe is going to hit by the end of the heat race. So I'm hopeful that we see rain around the 12 to 13 minute mark, and it is an absolute downpour, but everybody stays out on slicks because I kind of want the mayhem to ensue. I feel like that would put on a pretty crazy finish to the end of this one, very unpredictable. And like I said, looking at the radar, that's kind of what I'm feeling.
Boy, that would be absolutely spectacular, wouldn't it? As you see everybody lined on up and just about ready to go. Waiting on 3rd, 24th, and 41st to grid on up. Everybody else is ready to go. Tanner Klein actually going to miss the call. And with that, we are ready to get this show on the road. The revs build. And it's lights out. We're underway for the sprint race for round number 5 at Barber Motorsports Park.
Kyle Blevins with a clean getaway down into turn number 1. Quick little kink to the left. Wiping way out to the grass on the right, and then the long sweeping right-hand corner. A lot of cars still 2 by 2 further back in the field, mostly single file up front, though, as it looks like Austin Tucker able to take that second place position away from Alex Crawford. But yes, further throughout the field. Oh, one spinner further back, going sideways in the middle of the field, getting a little bit of a bumper tag. Can't quite tell who that is, but good save through the center of the corner as the front of the field goes through the first chicane.
Front of the field goes through that little accents road to get from one half of the track to the other. Still no issues. The track really drying out, but a lot of gravel being kicked up and onto the racetrack. And here comes everybody else as we now work our way up and over the rise into the last handful of corners. Looking like we're going to get out of this with actually no drivers going all the way around out of turn number 1. It is Kyle Blevins to lead the sprint race.
Out of the first corner, able to lead lap number 1, still 2 by 2, a little bit further back. Couple guys fighting hard for position. Oh, Ron Wolf giving a hip check just off the screen there. 3 wide down the front straightaway for a short moment. Shane Cameron around the outside in the 74, able to pick up on the slack that Ron Wolf left there. Ron trying to dive it back down into the inside through turn 1, not quite able to get side by side, but able to hang on to that position. Able to stop the bleeding here as we head through turn 2.
Through the second corner and up over the rise of turn number 3 and 4. Now setting ourselves up for 5. And we've got big problems in the back. Multiple cars going around and a couple are around up near the front as well.
Highlighter car off the racetrack. Bright green neon machine. Looks like that's Tyler Carlton in the yellow highlighter right in front. As we come down to that kind of chicane section, and a little bit of highlighter on highlighter violence.
Yeah, just a little bit. A few cars ended up going around with this one, and that's going to result in a pretty hefty whack. Oh, one car going hard into the wall. That was Dupuis. That's now tumbling down the field on the front straightaway.
Yeah, talk about a hefty whack, huh, Nolan? I mean, as soon as you said it, the words come out of your mouth. The other highlighter car straight into the inside wall out of turn, or out of the final corner here. Matthew Dupuis able to get that thing right back on the racetrack, getting that little quick damage repair, but he did lose a couple positions out of it. The 43 looking down to the inside of the 79 now through turn 2. One car just about off the racetrack. But Blake Gabriel just trying to hang on in that number 79 is Vietnam going to be able to get the spot done.
And This battle all on the drive down to the turn numbers 5 and 6 as we'll look to get ourselves set up now for 7. Up at the head of the field, Blevins continues to lead the way, but Tucker hot on his heels, as is Alex Crawford. Right now, battle for 12th place between Brooks Clayton and Ringo Harrison. Assuming, though, that these guys all move up one, that would put it between Harrison and Thacker.
Yeah, at this point, though, I still think it's too early to even tell for the top 12. No telling who all is going to wreck out towards the front of the field as they start getting a little argy-bargy towards the end of this heat race. Not much time in this to kind of make up all the spots you need. Darren Bai losing a position there to Justin Hall, coming through turn 2 now, right back on the back bumper. Trying to give himself an opportunity. He runs a little wide out of the corner and loses a little bit more ground, though, to Hall as they come out.
Just a little ways behind them, you saw Thacker trying to open up the door on Harrison. Harrison went in a little bit deep, but that gives him a good defensive line. And Crawford has actually spun it. A mistake from Crawford. That's a new one. Usually when we see him crashed in a sprint race, it's of his own design. I don't think this was that case this time.
I think that's a safe bet. All over the hill on the rise. Left side tires in the grass, and as soon as he gets back onto the asphalt, it just spun right around on him. Oh, and one car into the guardrail. 751 is that Ringo Harrison with an issue, and another one stuck against the guardrail as well.
And that's Barry Piper in the Fallout car. Running all sorts of Fallout references, Vaultec, Robco, Nuka-Cola, all over that machine. Pretty wide down the front stretch as Murphy tumbles down the running order. A lot of drivers starting to experience mistakes here. Barber Motorsports Park, definitely a driver's track, and it is biting hard in the sprint.
Yeah, I thought that once the rain subsided and, you know, we had some dry running, I thought that it would be a little bit more simple, that we wouldn't have any big issues. But so far, a couple guys have just caught themselves out, going a little wide on some of these corners, some of these left to right sections or right to left sections. Just whenever you've got the car pointed one direction and you're having to transfer the weight over to the other to get a good run through the next set of corners. It just seems to be catching out a couple of these guys, especially over the rise and the crest of the elevation changes here at Barber.
Working down the front straightaway, the battle for 5th place now on screen. This is Jake Kasich, this is John Combs. Both trying to set up a run. They are steadily catching up to Ronenberg and Fleming, while just behind them, oh, multiple cars going around. That's Justin Hall, that's Darren Bai going around in a big hit with Jeremy Castro.
Oh no, through turn 2, just, I mean, kind of synchronized spinning. 2 different battles of 2 cars, both wrecking each other in the same exact fashion, coming down into turn 2, and now they're having to let the entire field go by. All these guys were battling for right around the transfer spots, right around the invert spots for the main event, and now all of them are having to just sit idly by on the inside of the racetrack and let the entire field pass them by all the way back outside of the top 30.
Tough break, and after all of this moving and shaking, got a big battle now up on for the 4th place spot. Fleming, Kasich, Combs. All under a blanket. 8.5 minutes left on the clock. Kasich gets on the brakes. One car is stopped off the racetrack. That's Adam Klein. Right now, look at he is well out of the way, and to the inside goes Combs.
Combs down at the inside of turn 2, long, sweeping right-hand corner, trying to get a good enough run to stay side by side. Then through the little kink here of 3 before they come down to the chicane of 4 and 5. Can Combs get the better of them coming down? Still side by side, down into 4. Doesn't look like Combs is going to be able to do it. Not able to keep his nose in. Jake Kasich able to hang on to that spot in the top 5.
Right now, the 12th place spot held by Giovanni Romano. He's got Shane Cameron about 3 seconds ahead and Bueller 1.2 seconds behind. So not a big battle going on right now for that final invert position, entering the main event in about 12 minutes time, once you factor in the warm-up as well. The time being, the big fight to watch is this one for 3rd with 4 cars in the mix.
Well, how about Romano going from 39th to 39th to 12th in just 7.5 minutes? I know there's been a little bit of attrition mixed in there to give him a couple more spots, but that is kind of telling me that this might be one of the easier tracks to pass on that we've been at this season. As we said, 17 going off the racetrack here. He was running back in 31st place spot. Austin McColgan not having a great time through the heat race, but side by side here, Verhulst to the inside of Jason Lee, trying to pick up a spot. Sorry, Greg Beckman was trying to do it, but he's going to lose out to Jason Lee.
Yeah, Jason Lee picks one up over Beckman, Ryan Murphy in the fray as well, and just behind them, up over the hill, Highlighter versus Schnitzengiggle. It's one of the fluorescent folks. Carlton in particular trying to fend off Tyler Vietnam from the inside of turn 5. He will look to do just that. Great defensive line there for the 45. Keeps 43 entry at bay. Just the fight now between Augustino and Dupuis.
We had that big moment down the front straightaway not too long ago. Lost a couple positions, lost a good chunk of time to the battle for 12th, and now getting a little squirrely there in front of Tyler Augustino, trying to hang on to 15th now, well outside of the transfer positions, the invert spots to be able to get himself the pole, but just trying to hang on to everything he can so he can get a good starting spot in the main. But oh, it's going to be tight between the two, as it looks like Augustino cut the curve on the inside heavily, did some crazy bounces, but able to keep it out of the 7-3 of Dupuis. As we check in on Scott Fleming and Jake Kasich doing battle inside the top 5.
And in fact, Fleming just tried to make an attack on Eric Ronenberg. It was not successful, though. So Ronenberg maintains his strong run in that 3rd place spot. The smoke over there in the last couple of corners. Kasich tries to take advantage, but instead he's going to have John Combs dive to the inside, and Combs picks up 5th.
Big move there from Combs, but they're still going to be side by side down the front straightaway the entire way. Kasich with a little bit better drive, but Combs is going to have the inside line for the kink. Can he get the move completed before he get down to turn number 2? No, Kasich's going to rip it around the outside, keep it on the racetrack, and then dive down into the long sweeper of turn 2 with these two still side by side all the way around the corner. Can Kasich hang on to the position? He's going to shove him out to the outside of the racetrack, and Kasich's going to hang on.
Excellent drive right there for Jake Kasich as he fends him off. Fleming to the inside of Ronenberg, trying to make a spot up, while Combs will successfully steal one away from Kasich. Kasich trying to go for the over-under. 2 big battles going on right now, both for top 5 spots in the closing 5 minutes of the sprint.
Combs finally able to get the move done. Fleming couldn't quite get it done up there for Ronenberg, or on Ronenberg, for the 3rd place position through the chicane. He tried to pull the over-under, but Ronenberg did a good job just kind of putting his car in a defensive location through that 2nd corner of the chicane, and did not let Fleming get by him down that straightaway. Still hanging on, though, as Fleming is tucked right up behind that back bumper on the front straightaway, and Combs now hanging on the 5th.
Just behind them, Augustino, Dupuis, Verhulst, now all trying to get themselves into the mix. Augustino going to try to fend off to the inside. Meanwhile, Dupuis shuts the door on Verhulst in the battle for 15th. So that 69 car still showing no signs of slowing down. He is trying to break away, just hasn't been really successful in doing so these last several laps.
We got a little twitchy out of 2, open up a scenario there that they could get side by side, but Scott Fleming with a huge run on Ronenberg up a little bit further up. Kind of got caught out by that fast right-hander. And then now into the long sweeping right. Combs looking at the inside of Fleming. He's not going to have the drive out of the corner, but Fleming is all over the back bumper of Eric Ronenberg for the top 3.
One car off the road, believe that to be McColgan. Meanwhile, around the outside goes Fleming, trying to steal away 3rd from Ronenberg. Ronenberg squeezes him off the racetrack in turn 1. Fleming holds his ground, hanging to the inside. Ronenberg not able to get the nose in, and Fleming forces the issue.
Yeah, Fleming got the elbows out after he kind of got shoved off into the grass there through the exit of turn number 1, and now Ronenberg on the back foot, but trying to get a position back from Combs as one car spun a little bit further ahead up in the gravel trap, but these guys now going through the chicane side by side. Combs trying to take 4th to Ronenberg. Oh no, he's going to get turned by Ronenberg. Somehow he saves it, but Ronenberg goes spinning through the grass, able to hang on to it, but he's going to lose 4 or 5 spots.
That now brings Chris Flams right back into the mix. So Flams is able to make a big drive now as he gets himself up into the 7th place spot. Ronenberg back into the wall for a 2nd time. So more issues for Ronenberg.
What in the world? I thought Ronenberg had that thing saved and was going to be okay inside the top 7 or so, but he gets it back on the racetrack and the back end just never settled. Back end never settled on that thing and unfortunately spun it down to the inside. and he ends up beaching it down there. So that's going to move a couple people up into the top 12, drop Ronenberg way out of it. So now we're looking at Bueller as the guy transferring through to the pole position whenever we have the invert going. But can he hang on to that spot?
Kyle Blevins has got Austin Tucker breathing down his neck right now. 0.4 of a second between them. As Blevins fights his way into turn 9, I believe that was. Wow, big moments going on back here in the battle for the 5th place spot. What the heck's happened here?
Chris Bright coming down into the chicane. Oh, it happened in front. John Combs got him another one. Jake Kasich just getting sent off the nose of Combs down to the turn 4, and you can see Combs just missed the braking point.
Well, that'll do it. And now the battle for the sprint race win with 2 laps to go. Tucker's right there trying to duke it out with Blevins. Taking very tight lines, trying to get something set up with momentum to try and maybe see if he can get a run on it.
Blevins has been so good throughout this entire race, but over the course of the last couple laps, Tucker has been able to run that lead down, and now there's a good bit of lap traffic right in front of Kyle Blevins here that he's absolutely going to catch within the next lap and a half. So you got to think that's going to come into play into deciding the heat race #1 winner. Going to change over to the main event. They're going to be starting in the 12th place position, but it's all about those 12 points that you get at the end of the heat race. Can Kyle Blevins hang on to it, or can Austin Tucker reel that gap back in? Blevins had a really good middle sector of the racetrack. It's just all about how much does this lap traffic hold him up on the last lap.
Seconds to go. Clock will expire on this next lap. We are working Barber Motorsports Park for the final time in the sprint. And lap traffic looking like will play a factor in how this race goes down. Blevins seeing if he can't hang on for one more lap from a driver that has already won several races in his beer league career.
Yeah, Blevins now stretching out that gap, coming through turn 3 and then down into 4 and 5. Does the lap traffic get out of the way, or they continue fighting for their positions out front? Only half a lap to go, but Blevins is about to get on the back bumper of a couple of them. Carlton Corey Barrett able to pick up a position. And now Blevins able to get around one of the lap cars, sweeping into the right-hander now. Looks like that's going to be enough of a gap between Blevins and the lap cars in front. And a big enough gap between Blevins and Tucker for him to bring home the heat race #1 win.
Still will drive it in deep, and it's going to be Kyle Blevins taking home the win this afternoon in a stellar drive. The 4th sprint race of the season. He'll fend off a heavy hitter in the form of Austin Tucker to get the job done.
Bruce Flam's coming home 4th, Bright 5th. Aaron Thacker's still coming across. Romano with a good drive up from 39th to 7th in the heat. And then looking back to see who's going to actually get the invert, it looks like it's going to be Alexander Bueller coming home in 12th. He's going to be inverted into the pole. And one cleared the fence there. Just the catch fence kept him in. Or he cleared the tire barrier. Unfortunately, the catch fence there has ruined it. But man, that's one of the better beer league spots I think we've seen.
Yeah, one of the best ones. Now, this is awesome because these guys have just had to have found this out, right? I mean, fair enough, go straight on turn 1. Because remember, this is these guys' first time racing here in official beer league competition. And you got to have a good time when you got to do track, right?
Absolutely, and it absolutely helps whenever the runoff of turn #1 is so short like that. Kind of a little bit scary. I would maybe be a little nervous losing brakes down at the turn 1 if I was running a club car around here in real life or something. But not a lot of runoff down there. But for the beer league, it's perfect.
I'll try the Indy cars they run here in the real world.
Yeah, that would I would be freaked out of my mind if my brake pedal didn't work coming down to turn 1 with an Indy car. Holy cow!
With all that said and done, let's take a quick look. This is how everything's going to be lining on up for race number 2 of the night for the feature event. And we'll look to start from the bottom and work our way up to the top for this one. So Alex Coffer finds himself down and out early on this afternoon. He'll start dead last of the feature along with Adam Joseph Elhott and Adam Klein. Also not finishing that race was Austin McColgan and Ethan Condi. with Ringo Harrison finishing just 1 lap down. From there, Brooks Hoyting, Jeremy Castro, Ben Williams, David Elkin, Barry Piper, Darren Bai, Carson Catlin, Tyler Vietnam, Blake Gamble, Jason Lee, Matthew Wade, Justin Hall, Eric Ronenberg, Antonio Alvarez, Jordan Babcock, Greg Beckman, Kyle Smith, Ryan Murphy, Tyler Carlton, Evan Campbell, Ryan Verhulst, Tyler Augustino, and Ron Wolf will take us to the top 12 invert. From there, it is going to be one Kyle Blevins will now go top to bottom. Kyle Blevins will start his race from 12th with Austin Tucker at 11th, Fleming at 10th. Chris Flams will start in 9th place with Chris Bright in 8th, Thacker in 6th, Giovanni Romano in 7th, and Corey Bear will be up in the 5th place spot with Kasich in 4th, Combs 3rd, Cameron in 2nd, and Alexander Bueller will look to start his race from pole position with the top 12 invert this afternoon. So, Austin, your drivers to keep an eye out for. I think Kyle Blevins has a good shot to win what could be, I believe, his first beer league race tonight.
Now, you say that, and I would have to agree with you. He's got the speed, but, man, he is going to have to start back in the 12th place spot. During the main event, we're going to get some rain at some point. I'm seeing some bands starting to come in. The percentage is pretty low for most of it, but I'm starting to see some weather starting to come in. So that could present some opportunities for Blevins, but we've always seen, you know, starting mid-pack in the beer league isn't always the best place to be, and being flipped back to the 12th place position could prove dangerous for him.
Make that his second beer league win is what he would be going for, as he took 1 win at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and he also took a 2nd place at Spa. However, those are the only 2 podiums he has gotten in total. Looking like the story goes 7 top 5s as it stands. So this is one of the best chances he's had to get a shot at the win in some time.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think there's going to be a good chunk of contenders here throughout the day. Obviously, Romano's probably going to start at the back, even though he's in the top 12 currently. Crawford coming through the field as well. We saw that they could make ground up, right? Romano made a lot of ground up during that heat race. Can they make it all the way up towards the lead, or is it going to be somebody like Bueller who's starting up on pole? Can he hang on to this thing throughout the entirety of the race like we saw in the first race of the season from Ron Wolf?
That is the ever-present question, isn't it, right? Can these guys hang on? What's the play going to be for these guys, especially when/if that rain comes along? And that rain, it's the big if right now, isn't it? I mean, we don't know where that rain's going to come from, when it's going to come from. That's going to be one of the huge deciding factors in how this one plays out as well.
Absolutely. When does that rain start to come down at some point? And does it actually come down, right? I know that we skipped some time in between the warm-up and the features, so we could just skip this big band of rain that I'm looking at. But the more and more that the radar comes through, the more and more I see rain building up behind it. It's not super heavy rain, but it's absolutely going to be enough to throw these guys off their game, just like it did in the qualifying session. There's just going to be a little lack of grip. It could slow down lap times 2, 3, 4 seconds. And then, you know, if the track gets absolutely drenched, are we going to see somebody come take the wet tires? Is the track actually going to get to that point?
Well, we'll get to all of that in just a moment. For now, we've got your opening ceremonies, and then it'll be time for race in action at the Barber Motorsports Park. So racing action once again getting set to resume, and sure enough, the rain has shown up with the time jump as we get to the 1-hour main event. And, well, Austin, you called it. It's here. It's going to be a wet start this afternoon.
Yeah, the rain coming down, and we're, the time skipped right into the middle of the very beginning of the band of rain. Now, there's a little subsections in between where we might just have the tiniest of drizzles or maybe even a couple minutes of dry running, but the track's going to be wet the entire time. Now, the question is it wet enough to put on the wet tires, right? If it's just going to be a drizzle the whole time, are you going to fight out there with the slick tires and just hope and pray that you keep it on the racetrack? The rain never looks like it gets super heavy. It's just light blue on my radar right now, but it looks relatively consistent for the first stint of the race, so I almost feel like you got to start on the wets.
Well, not a lot of drivers are agreeing with you on that one. In fact, so far, everyone that is gridded on up, which admittedly is still less than half the field, they have all opted for the dry tires to kick things off so far. A lot of guys have not made appearances yet, including guys at the top two. This could be an interesting race.
And that doesn't surprise me super heavily. There's still parts of the racetrack that's just getting a drizzle, right? So the wet tires would definitely burn up. They would be tough to drive in certain sections, but I'm just looking at the radar that I'm seeing right now, 10, 15 minutes into this thing, it is going to be rather consistent for the rain as long as this band that I'm looking at doesn't just completely dwindle away before it actually gets here. So it's going to be tight by the time that this band gets here. We might see some people just skating off the racetrack with no control.
Bueller takes wet weather tires, so does Barry Piper back in 31st place. Everybody else so far is opting for dry tires as we get set to kick off racing action this afternoon. So an extremely bold choice. One thing that is critical tonight, Giovanni Romano starting his race from pit road. That's an interesting call for him. And Bueller is just dipped out. Bueller will not make the start as he takes to pit road. Might have tried to change tires. It was too late, though. It's go, go, go from Alabama, and the pole sitter is nowhere to be found.
Oh, no. Terrible decision from Bueller. But down into turn number one, all these guys on dry tires with the rain coming down. Are we going to have any big moments? We saw how tough it was for him in qualifying. Coming down to turn one, we've got some beating and banging cars going around in the back of the field. You can already tell it's a lot more slick than what we saw in the heat race. Darren Bayou down to the inside wall there out of turn number one. A couple people making big moves, including Jake Kasich for the race lead on Shane Cameron.
One car's around at the tail end. That's Kyle Blevins that is spotted at the back of the field. Meanwhile, down into the braking zone at turn 5. Kasich hangs on from Combs, from Cameron, and everyone else now trying to cycle through. We got more problems collecting right at the transition in that chicane. Up over the rise, half the track is blocked right now, and a whole heap of cars are stacking in there.
Oh, it's just completely blocked coming through the chicane. Finally, a slow roll through it, even with the car stuck sideways. More cars going around. Oh, still hopping over each other. Is that Romano getting sent to the inside barrier? You mentioned Kyle Blevins. He was the heat race winner, and he got spun coming out of turn number 2. And so he's all the way at the back of the pack. We've got 5, 6, 7 other cars that have wrecked out on this first lap, if not more. And I'm starting to feel like my call of the wet weather tires might have been a little bit better for some of these guys.
And look at the pile-up back here as everyone just came storming in, and it just never stopped. I mean, all the way around the corner, they still kept piling into each other.
Oh, and Romano really late, not noticing the slow car directly in front, came to a big stop right in front of him. You see the rooster, these rooster tails are bigger than what we saw in qualifying already, right? I mean, we just saw Jake Kasich with a huge tail coming out of the back end of that car down the straightaway. Through the chicane, not anything too bad, but as soon as they get back on the straight, you start seeing the tire tracks, and even from under the middle of the car. That's whenever you really got to start being worried, whenever you see the bigger one in the middle, and Combs, he's worried because he's getting a big spray in his face, and the back end's coming around.
A lot of drivers still trying to sort something out with one another as a bunch of drivers getting off into the grass. And William mentioned a lot of guys might be skating around. There's the Austin McCall gets stopped middle of the field. This is why a bunch of cars are going off the racetrack right now. It's because there's nowhere to go. McCall taking the wise move, though, just sitting stationary, allowing the field to get around him. Then Kasich and Combs right now in lockstep for the top 2 spots.
I was talking about the pre-race potential for the weather radar to start dwindling as we got further on into this weather system, but as I'm looking at it, it's actually growing right behind the racetrack, so we're going to get even heavier rain in just a couple more minutes. There was a little gap that was forming, but the gap is completely gone in the rain, and so this track is just going to get wetter and wetter over the course of the first 30 minutes of this race.
Corey Barrett, Chris Flams, Chris Bright, all trying to get in each other's heads here as we fight our way in towards the back end of the racetrack. Guys like Jake Kasich and John Combs. Right now, 1 and 2. Rain is still pitter-pattering down on the race course. Not showing too many drivers losing grip as of yet. And they're doing a pretty good job considering they're all still on slick tires here. They might be trying to tough it out until that little sporadic bit of rain passes by. Combs that time might look for the inside of turn 2, but he's going to lose grip, a bit of a slip out of turn number 2.
It's so hard to make that type of pass. Combs looking for the dive into the corner, but man, you do that, you're really going to lose the front turn through the center of the corner whenever the rain's coming down like this. You've really got to somehow get a better run on exit and get side by side before the next corner. It's just going to be so hard to be able to dive down into a corner to the inside of somebody, get the move done whenever you just don't have the grip to do it, right? The front end's going to slide. It's going to chatter up into the car on the outside. There, Combs just had to completely get out of it to avoid hitting Kasich. He's finding a little bit more speed, still hanging on the back bumper of Kasich, but further back, Chris Bright still hanging on to his position over Fleming here inside of the top 10. Oh, but Shane Cameron gets spun here. Looks like somebody's going to wait on him. The 816 of Aaron Thacker looking like he's trying to wait, but Cameron dropping back outside of the top 5.
Dropping out from the 3rd place spot, and this is why Thacker just tracked wide, loss of grip, and sent the 74 machine around.
Yeah, that's a tough one if you're Shane Cameron because, I mean, you gave as much room as you absolutely possibly could in that corner all the way to the outside, still having to get spun around, turned around, losing a good chunk of positions back to 9th. Thacker hung on to the 5th place position after all of that, but Combs still not letting Kasich get away up at the front, as it looks like Ringo Harrison and a couple other cars have had a moment down the front straight.
There's a few of them that have gone around there. Brooks Clayton, Adam Klein, Ethan Condi, all gone around. Something's gone awry here on the exit of turn 11. Oh boy, they were already crashed up the road and everyone just kind of came screaming in.
Yeah, I'm shocked that the entire field took slick tires from what I'm seeing on the radar right now. I mean, we're just seeing everybody struggle. Even the front 2 leaders are almost coming together whenever they get close. I mean, it's just one big struggle bus out there for every single one of these guys because nobody put on the wet tires. The one guy on the wet tires was the pole sitter, and he left last second to try to put slicks on. I mean, if he would have stuck with it, I think that Bueller would be in an unbelievable position right now with the rain coming down like it is. But instead, he's all the way in the very back of the pack.
Chris Flams trying to look for the outside of Aaron Thacker, going to cut back to the inside of the Hot Wheels machine. Not going to get the move in there. Over the rise, we work down one of the back chutes, got it up to 5. Meanwhile, for the race lead, Jake Kasich still has Combs absolutely hounding his back bumper here. Combs is not allowed Kasich to get away.
Look how much he fought the wheel on the exit of that last corner. These cars are not the most difficult. They're not the most twitchy cars in the world, but man, they look like they've got 900 horsepower coming out of the corners with how much Combs is just trying to fiddle with the steering wheel. A little bit cleaner through the last couple of corners here. Not any big movement, so a little bit better there from Combs. Maybe the last couple of corners a little bit drier here on the racetrack, but you see the spray coming up from the car in front as we head down to turn number 1, having to lift a little bit early to make sure that he makes that braking point. And then coming down into turn number 2, the long sweeper, just absolutely no grip, so you just gotta wait on the front end of the car to turn, even through all the wetness, through all the puddles. And then even whenever you get the throttle down, you see Kasich right in front of him, losing the back end ever so slightly, but just able to pull away from Combs until they get down to the straightaway. Combs in the slipstream, driving it right back down to his bumper into the chicane.
Pass for 3rd as well on this lap here, as Aaron Thacker has gotten around Corey Barrett, and this is how about that? Look at that drive around the outside of turn 3 and up the hill to 4. That is a great move on a wet racetrack.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, we were talking to him earlier about how it's going to be unbelievably difficult to make a pass on the outside of that corner, but the difference is whenever the rain comes down, you got more momentum towards the top side of the racetrack. The rubber's not laid down there, so you actually have more grip off of the racing groove, so the preferred line becomes a lane, 2 lanes off of the bottom side of the racetrack. So that line that Thacker's found, he's just the first one to find it. That's going to be the preferred groove through the course of this race as long as the rain's coming down.
of a second still remains between the top two runners here. Oh, they're both slipping up that time in the middle of turn 3. Crest over the hill at 4, 10th and a half. This could be Combs' chance. Pulls over to the right. Kasich covers. And Combs will not pull back to the left. Probably could have had an attack there down the inside of turn 5, but he's not looking to be over aggressive here early on.
I mean, it just takes one mistake. One of the tiniest mistakes possible here, especially in the wet, to end your race and in another guy's race, or at least put you way far behind to where you're not going to be in the fight for the lead. Both these guys, though, the pace that they've shown at the beginning has been incredible. Combs almost off the racetrack to the outside there, losing a little bit on Kasich through the last couple of corners, but able to gain it back, it looks like, on exit as they come up to the final corner. Still 51 minutes left in this thing, but Combs actually off the racetrack in second, but he's able to get it back on the tarmac coming across the start-finish line, but he's going to lose a good chunk of time, and it looks like Corey Barrett is going to be the first guy to come down pit road and say, I think I'm going to put on the wet tires.
Corey Barrett down in the pit road. Kasich and Combs both swinging out wide in turn 1 last time through. Here's Tyler Marcino, Evan Campbell, Lee Alvarez, Hall, all under a blanket as they work their way down the pit straight in towards turn number 1. Jason Lee looking for the inside on Evan Campbell. No dice this time. Antonio Alvarez going to take advantage, tries to drive it in deep, looking to get around to the inside of Lee. Lee gonna actually battle back. He's gonna take one round the outside of Campbell.
That's it, man. That outside line of turn 2 is gonna be great in the wet. It's just better. The rubber's not laid down. You got more grip out there because there's no slick stuff other than just the rain. Whenever you're sitting there in the rubber and the rain, it's just so tough. Here through the chicane, you basically got no opportunities. You gotta go through the rubber at some point to be able to get through that corner. So you're gonna find some slickness. You're gonna have some opportunities to make passes, but also opportunities to just go flying off the racetrack, especially whenever you're stuck in these side-by-side battles. 4 cars under a blanket with a little bit of contact. Romano is going to pick off 2 of them.
Verhulst, Romano, Hall, Campbell. Trying to see who's got the one to survive. They're kind of out in a line right now as the 64 and the 71 are scrapping it out amongst themselves. It's a huge fight right now that this battle for 13th is happening. Eric Ronenberg, remember, had those problems in the sprint race. Now he's trying to work himself back up to the field. He has just fought his way up to 15th. He was running up in the top 5 before he spun in the sprint. He is a guy that's got a top 5 car with potential tonight if he can get a lucky code 60.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. We know for a fact Ronenberg's got the pace. It's just, can he keep himself patient? Can he make the moves that he needs when he wants, or whenever he needs to? Through 3, a little bit close there with the 71, pinching him all the way down with Evan Campbell still in this big battle pack, coming down to the chicane again. Romano down to the inside of Justin Hall, trying to take the 12th place position as they both come down through 4 and then up the crest of 5. And you got to think, you come over the crest in a race car, and typically the back end steps out. The car gets light, the back end starts skating on you. And you just kind of start having a moment. Whenever it's raining and you're stuck in that rubber coming across the chicane like that while you're coming over the crest, it's even worse. But I got to point out one thing. I was saying the wet tires might be the way to go. Well, we're about to get a code 60 to figure that out, whether some of these guys are about to come down pit road and change tires or not, because the next time these guys come across the line, we got the yellow flag, and actually it's already out with Kasich.
Yep, they've already gotten that code 60 out, so that's a good stuff here. Your race leaders, and now this is going to give a lot of this field a big chance to come on down and get tires. Corey Barrett will be able to get a lap back because he actually went a lap down as a result of that pit stop. He is on the wet rubber though, so he'll be able to take that wave around when everybody else comes down and into pit road.
And now the big point is, how much time are we going to lose under the code 60? Obviously it's built a little bit better than the last caution bot that we had in previous seasons, to where we're not going to lose as much time during the yellow flag period. And as I keep looking at the radar, I'm really thinking the wet tires are the way to go, because there's a little gap after, probably in 20 minutes there's going to be a little gap, but it's only going to be about a 10-15 minute gap, and then it's going to start raining again. So I would say go ahead and put on the wets. You're 6 seconds off your qualifying time. Put on the wet tires, let it run to the end, and I think that you might have a chance to win this thing.
Will look to come interesting. No, they're not coming down pit road. Not a lot of guys coming into pit lane this time around. One car, in fact, off the row. That is the number 5 of McColgan. Actually, the 17. But yeah, not a lot of drivers coming down to the pits on this one.
Crawford came down. And typically Crawford's been very, very strongly talks about his strategy and has very strongly talked about how other people are really stupid when it comes to strategy. So Crawford gonna have to be putting his money where his mouth is right here, right now with this pit stop coming in to take the wet tires.
A few other drivers have made their way in. Shane Cameron, Kyle Blevins have all come down the pit road along with Jordan Babcock. So a few drivers are in on the wet weather tires. Now, you've got the radar. What is that rain band looking like for these next few minutes? Because that's going to be absolutely pivotal in how these drivers plan their next phases out.
Well, we're 14 minutes into this race, and we're not even...
Rain has just stopped.
Well, you say it's stopped. It's in a very, very light section. It's still coming down ever so slightly.
There it is.
We're only halfway through this band. Not even halfway through this band. So I think it's going to keep going for another 15, 20 minutes before we get a reprieve. I would put on the wet tires. From what I've been seeing from a lot of these guys, I think the wets would be the way to go.
This is going to be really fun to see what the pace of these guys on the wet weather rubber down to the tail end of the field is going to be like in comparison to everybody else that's running on dries up in front. Because that rain, like I said, it's still coming down in isolated sections of racetrack. I mean, this could go either way, frankly. And we're, only 15 minutes in now. I mean, this is going to get interesting once we go green.
I know these guys probably can't see the radar exactly like I can. I don't know exactly how the black box features come with this on iRacing, how well you can kind of tell the weather through the black box, but the weather that I can see on the UI from just looking at the main replay system, I mean, it's still light blue, right? It's not heavy rain, but it's just consistent. It's consistent rain that we're going to be seeing over the course of the next 20 minutes. I'm shocked that so many people stayed out on the racetrack, especially further back. If you're 20th on back, come on in, put on the wet tires. What do you have to lose? You're already 20th.
This is likely going to be a single file restart until we go back to the green flag here, because it is on a wet condition, and that's what the league administrators have said, right? I mean, they'll do these code 6s. They'll try to go double if they can. The exceptions, if it's a wet track or if it's on a potentially dangerous racetrack to go double file on. I think this meets the conditions for wet track right now.
Yeah, I would say so. Especially, I mean, it's weird because mostly everybody is on slick tires, but I would say that makes it even more treacherous, right? It's a wet racetrack with a bunch of guys on slick tires. So I think that's a little bit more dangerous than a normal scenario where everybody's sitting down here on the wets with just barely any rain coming down. But again, it's enough rain. It's enough rain coming down that I just think the mistakes are going to continue. We're going to keep seeing people overshooting the corners, getting on the throttle a little bit too heavily, getting those rear ends chattering, coming on the exit of the corners and spinning out. I just think it's going to get more and more serious as we go into this thing.
Everybody has caught up to the tail of the pacing line some time ago, so frankly, to be blunt, I don't know why we're still under this code 60. I mean, we should have gone green a while ago.
Oh my, we're doubling up. That's
oh boy. That's a choice.
Scary. Turn one's going to be interesting. They're going to be going faster into that corner than we were in the main start, or in the initial start, if we start on the front straightaway. So this is going to be a little nerve-wracking.
Coming off the final corner. Looking for the green. Not going to come around for the front straightaway, I don't think. Still got guys at the tail of the field there trying to get doubled up still. Well, we're going to go for it. Green flag is up in the air. We're racing once again to the Barber Motorsports Park. Just taking off down to the turn one is Jake Kasich.
Most of these guys leaving room. You see the outside line way out wide. A little bit of contact, one sideways, middle of the pack, but ultimately it looks like everybody's going to get their cars under control. Oh no! Well, everybody except for one. Two guys coming together a little bit further back outside of the top 15. Oh, and then further up towards the front of the pack, one of the highlighter cars getting sent sideways, 4 wide for a moment, off into the dirt. Ron Wolf able to pass 3 cars there through turn 2.
They're going to get things sorted for now. No problems here in this one. And we got a couple of cars going around to the turn 5-6 chicane. And one of those will be Austin McColgan. McColgan going to spin sideways. He's going to collect a couple.
Yeah, got a bit of a parking lot there. And they're still saying it's just very similar issues every single time. Just minor contact with one of the quarter panels of the back bumper with some of these guys and just getting stuck, right? They're just slow spinning, getting stuck sideways in the middle of the racetrack. We're having to see 3-4 cars parked behind them. Oh, big contact there. Matthew Dupuis getting together with one of his teammates that were sent sideways in the middle of the track. Evan Campbell off the racetrack as well. We just see continuous shuffling of the leaderboards. A couple people having moments. Ben Williams, one of them. Matthew Dupuis now off the racetrack again. Coffer, though, on the wet weather tires, he's already up to 20th.
Good move for Alex Crawford. He has admittedly had a lot of drivers help him out here. Oh boy, we got a fight in pit road as Campbell gets it with, I believe that was Bueller. A lot of drivers are in right now, though, either for restart violations or for a change of tires onto the wet weather compounds. It's a bit late to make that call now, but Combs takes the tail end out. He's struggling to keep Aaron Thacker at bay for second.
But these guys fighting hard before the restart, or before the caution flag. Combs was mostly on the back bumper of Jake Kasich, giving him a run for his money. But here, since the restart, Kasich has just absolutely pulled away. Austin Tucker way off the racetrack. It looks like Chris Flam's stuck sideways in the middle of the track, able to get it going, but losing a ton of ground outside the top 10, outside the top 15, and Tucker went backwards with him.
A lot of argy-bargy response around the cusp of the top 10. And all's gonna go well, so overall, I mean, could have been worse, question mark, could have been better, but 3 wide now. And on the front straightaway, Jason Lee trying to open up the door. He'll be forced to end up backing out.
Ronenberg now down to the inside, making contact with the 69.
Boy.
Oh, Ronenberg gets just a little bit of air. Couple cars making big contact. Justin Hall going around. Looks like the 8 of Jason Lee up against the guardrail on the outside of turn number 2. The entire field having a scatter as Justin Hall's just stuck in the middle of the racetrack.
Find a gap and get himself off the racetrack. While everyone else still embroiled in their own little isolated dogfights throughout this pack. Chris Flams, Alex Coffer trying to battle it out. Coffer now up into the top 15 of this race. And right now, in a shot of the top 10 with only 6/10 between him and the 10th place driver.
Bit of contact there right in front of them. Augustino and Flams coming to blows, but look at that grip that Coffer's got on the outside of the racetrack that these guys just don't have. That's the wet weather tire, baby. That's why I was so surprised. Under that caution flag, we didn't see anybody else do it. I cannot believe more people didn't come down, and I'm starting to see people starting to come down now. I think that they're realizing, oh man, I made the wrong call. Look at these rooster tails at this point. This is the biggest we've seen all night.
Too late now, though. You come down now, you're losing a lap. You had to do that under the safety car. If you come down now, you're throwing your race away. You had to have made that decision under the safety car, and the only way they're going to be able to recover now is A, if that rain continues to escalate and forces the leaders to come down, or B, if they get into the code 60, if they get a lap back. Coffer sent off the racetrack as Tanner Klein goes around.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. Right, what you said about having to come down during the caution flag. You have to make that decision whenever you're not going to lose much time. You come down under caution, you just get to catch right up back to the back of the field. You've got better tires than everybody else for the conditions. I think you can just go. Oh, Shane Cameron stuck in the middle 3 wide. Jeremy Castro there on the inside, and then one of his highlighter teammates of Ben Williams on the other side coming through 5. They all get it sorted out with no contact between the 3 of them, or at least no major contact between the 3 of them, but up towards the lead. Kasich getting sideways. Combs now around the outside, down the front straightaway.
John Combs going to steal the lead away, gets clear, and is going to clear across the nose. John Combs will be into the lead of this race just at the 38 minutes to go mark. Scott Fleming is in. Eric Ronenberg is in. Kasich now dropping back to 3rd potentially. Is Aaron Thacker trying to get around the outside? We've seen that outside lane work wonders in the wet, and sure enough, he's back around the outside line.
Kasich starting to struggle. He ran away from these guys on the initial start, but the last couple of laps have not been what Jake Kasich needs. I'm not quite sure if all these guys are taking tires, if some of them are staying committed to the...
It's going to be for fuel as well at this point, remember.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you've got to come down for fuel at some point. I imagine with the wet, you can probably make it to the end of the race from here in 37 minutes, right? I think you can make it 37 minutes on gas in the wet. So some of these guys might only be coming down for gas, but I just... Oh, leader
no!
John Combs just went spinning. John Combs off the racetrack, up in front of the other 2 leaders, and then back down in front of Aaron Thacker. Oh, man, super close, coming around the corner. Aaron Thacker, though, going through the lead. Jake Kasich deciding I got to come down pit road.
This race, from the field projections, should be a relatively easy one-stopper. So I think these drivers are just trying to push it a little bit further. May even trying to go to the point to when they can actually feasibly go the distance on fuel to the end now, right? I think that's why we did see a lot of them pit with the safety car, because all the guys that did come down for wet weather tires, they have to stop one more time because they pitted there.
So, I've got to ask you, Combs off the racetrack again. You can tell he is just struggling, doing a little bit of a rally jump down here on the infield of turn number 2. But you've got the ability to see the tires. I don't. How many of these guys that have come down pit road have actually changed tires since the caution? Obviously, all the guys under caution did. Oh, Dupuy again. Okay, so everybody's changing tires still. So, at that point, the guys that change tires under the caution are just going to be in a better position, right? They don't have to change tires again. They just got to get a little splash of gas.
So Lee, Cameron, Williams all getting into the mix here as we work our way through the 11th place positions and now back up and around. Right now the top 6 still on dries, 7th and 8th on wets, then 9th and 10th on dries. Cameron's on wets. Kind of 50-50 from there on back, but right now more than half the field are on wet weather compounds.
I bet a lot of these guys are just kicking themselves at this point. All the guys that came down pit road and put on wet tires during the caution look like absolute geniuses, while the rest of them look like they were just stuck with their hands in their pants during the caution flag. I mean, it is just a terrible decision to stay out there on the slicks, and they are hating themselves for it at this point.
Chris Bright, Giovanni Romano go side by side. Romano going to take one down the inside. He'll pick up the number 2 spot. Chris Bright, man, he is fighting that car something fierce right now. Copper, by the way, running about 2 seconds faster than all these drivers that are on dry tires right now. So we have well past the changeover point.
Yeah, your race leader that last time by ran a 1 minute 10 second and 4/10 lap, almost 5/10. Crawford with a 1:08.6, so almost 2 seconds faster than the race leader. And the race leader just spun out of the last corner, so that's going to be a whole heck of a lot faster for Crawford this time around. Thacker into the inside wall, giving up the race lead to to Giovanni Romano, I believe. He just lost it out of the last corner all by himself.
Romano takes up the lead after this moment with Thacker just spinning up all by himself. Romano now has a 2-second gap over Bright for the lead. From there it's Alvarez, and then Austin Tucker, and there is Crawford.
Yeah, and Crawford's coming. These guys are just sitting ducks at this point. There is a little gap in the weather, but it's still 5, 10, heck, I mean, it just keeps growing, to be honest with you. There was a decent gap that looked like it might hit in about, I don't know, I'd say 5 minutes from now, but it's grown even bigger on the back end to where it's like a 10-minute gap a 10-minute window until we actually get a gap in the rain, and that gap is continuing to close on the radar. Every time I look at it, it's just getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier before the next band behind it. So I mean, the guys that took tires look like absolute geniuses.
Alvarez versus Tucker here. Oh, Alvarez off the road. Austin Tucker sweeps through, picks up the 3rd place spot. Good move there from Austin Tucker. He's going to be able to pick one off from Antonio Alvarez. Just behind them, Aaron Thacker in a battle now with Alex Crawford, as Crawford trying to get into the top 5.
I believe Romano is still on the slick tires, correct? I mean, he's running some really competitive lap times for being on slick tires if he still is. I'm shocked at how quick Romano is able to run around this racetrack with the rain coming down like it is. He ran a 109.3 with Crawford's 109.0. Crawford on the better tires, you would expect that to be a little bit better at this point, but Romano is just laying them down and putting them down.
Other drivers, Castro, Campbell, Mailhot, all under the blanket as well, with a lot of folks that are just absolutely having a time of it here. I mean, we're having a good race. I mean, this is a phenomenal race we're having this afternoon, but it's still a big one that's got a lot of question marks. I mean, this could be a championship pivotal race with how many shakeups we've had this season. And one of those races where you look back and you think, well, what if you made a decision here? Could this be the race where some championships are lost or potentially won? Kyle Smith's gone around.
Coverage of the 549 coming down towards the chicane. Jason Lee just way too deep, way too deep there for Jason Lee getting into there, and Kyle Smith and so. Oh, well, I think he was. I'm going to say he was going to try to help him with the second bit of contact. It definitely didn't come off too well. But here's Antonio Alvarez and Austin Tucker coming down into turn number 1. Alvarez is able to make the pass.
And he's going to get him back as Alvarez round the outside of Tucker in the middle of turn 3 into the grass, though. And now 3 wide for the third place spot. Thacker up the middle. Tucker on the right, Alvarez on the left. Thacker backs out. Crawford still in the mix here, and it's going to be still a fight between Alvarez and Tucker. Alvarez hanging the left-hand side out to try. Can he get around him on the high side here? No dice. Tucker hangs on.
Tucker hanging on. Crawford still trying to get through. He's able to make one pass, it looks like, on Thacker. Oh, he's going to give him a bit of a hip check on the outside of the racetrack. Crawford taking that position. Not just lightly driving by him, just absolutely swiping it from him. Chris Bright finally decided it's time to come down pit road with 31 minutes remaining. Going to move Crawford up into the top 5 for now. But Romano, again, I'm shocked, right? He's on the slick tires. He's running 108.4, so I think the track, although we still see the big rooster tails, I think maybe we've got a relatively defined drier line for Romano, right? It's obviously not dry, but I think that he's just found a decent groove, a decent line around this racetrack that offers him the most grip possible because he's running the same lap times as Crawford at this point.
Crawford, Alvarez, Thacker still embroiled under a blanket. Combs is in the mix here as well. Man, this is a fierce dogfight for third place here. They're closing in on Tucker as well. This is now a fight for the second place position as well. I mean, holy cow. And this is, for the record, one of the only battles we got on the racetrack right now. A lot of other drivers are very broken apart. This is the one to watch. This is where all the action is.
Tucker ripping her around the outside. Might be 3 wide here.
That's brave.
Oh, Alvarez just went way off the racetrack as these guys are all fighting for it. Tucker trying to get the position away from the 37 of Fleming. And Fleming's actually a lap down. Fleming is coming out of the pits, is a lap down, holding these guys up at this point.
So Alvarez was coming to pit road there. That's why we saw him going way off the racetrack. So Alvarez is into the pits. Now it's a 4-car fight for second. Thacker, here comes Thacker. Get Thacker, work that outside lane. No, he's gone out too far. He's hit the grass and he is going to drop it. Crawford to the inside, takes one up from Tucker.
And see, that took a long time for Crawford to get through these guys on the slick tires towards the front of the field. They were just fast enough to hold him up. Combs to the outside now of Tucker. It's going to become the inside for the second apex here. Can he get a run off the bottom side of the corner? Going to be tough in the wet, but still going to be side by side between the two coming off. Combs holding up really tight through the kink, trying to get the better drive through the inside line all the way down on the curving, but Tucker is going to be able to hang on to the spot. But like I was saying, Crawford getting held up big time behind some of these guys up towards the front of the field, and even some of the lap cars like Scott Fleming who have come out of pit road. Crawford is struggling big time to get by these guys, which is just like Romano pulled away.
Yeah, Crawford's not going to be very happy with drivers like Scott Fleming here. You know those blue flags are flying for these guys. He wants to get through, but he's got to, I think, prioritize here. He's going to get around one lap car, trying to look for the inside, but just couldn't get it done. His advantage here, the fact that the battle for third behind is still side by side, and that's allowing him to still at least focus on what's in front of him and not what's behind him. Contact between Tucker and Combs. Might send Combs a bit wide. Combs steals third away.
Good job from Tucker getting off the gas there. He very well could have pushed Combs wide, kept the position. He got out of the throttle to let Combs stay on the racetrack. Thacker trying to get through a couple of these guys as well. And just, I mean, a huge battle pack mixed in with lap cars that have already come down pit road with some guys in the top 5, top 6. Thacker, the guy in front, getting just ever so slightly loose. Kyle Blevins right in front of him, just trying to hang on at this point as they came out of the chicane. Now they're sweeping right up the hill and over the crest into the last couple of corners. Thacker looking feisty, trying to get back into the top 5.
Look around him, not gonna really get a nose in out of thing. Combs and Tucker are still in this fight. Now they've the ones that have caught Fleming, as Crawford is now just running away with that spot. Here's Thacker, here's Blevins. Thacker for the inside. Takes away the spot for the top 5. Bumps Kyle Blevins and the wet weather tires down. That's a slick tire car, by the way, that just overtook the wet weather tire car.
to Alvarez off the racetrack. He just came out of pit road a couple laps ago.
Yeah, here's something interesting here. Alvarez has pitted. He's still on slicks.
I mean, I don't know. It keeps going back and forth. Like, Romano will run a good lap from the lead in the slicks that's competitive or even faster than Crawford, and then he'll run 2 or 3 seconds off the pace. And I think that that's just kind of the name of the game for a lot of these guys. Like, consistency, you want the wet tire, but you can run equal with the slick tire at this point. It's just harder to do so, I imagine, right now. So, you know, you don't want to change tires under green because you just lose so much time, but it just takes 2 or 3 times going off the racetrack for you to give all that time up anyway. So if you're a guy like Alvarez, you just got to keep that thing on the tarmac, and you'll probably be better than the guys that ended up taking wets after the caution. But I mean, it's just a little too early to tell at this point, especially considering we're still going to get a little break in the weather here in just a couple minutes, but it's just not that big of a break. It'll start raining really quickly soon after that, and it's going to be the heaviest rain of the event so far. So it's just a big guessing game at this point for the entire field.
And Williams makes his way into pit road while the fight for second is still very much on further up the road. Only 11 minutes until the code 60 window closes, by the way, for the second possible caution during this race.
Crawford starting to eat into that gap now from Romano, ever so slightly. That gap was about 7.5, 8 seconds whenever he cleared for second place. He's cut it down to 6. Coming around the second to last corner here, but still 25 minutes left on the clock, and we got to think all these guys still got to come down pit road one more time. Crawford for just a splash of gas, we think. Romano gonna have to have a little bit more gas. So you got to think that lap time, or sorry, that gap between the two is going to come down ever so slightly again through the pit stop sequence, just because Romano has to take a bit more fuel than Crawford does.
So second, third, fourth, and fifth are all under a blanket. 25 minutes are left on the clock. The battle for second starting to condense again as Tucker and Thacker started to chase down John Combs, and Alex Crawford hasn't really been able to get away from these guys that much up the road. And now the question is, has he been closing on Giovanni Romano? The answer? Kinda. Yeah, he's gained about 1 second and 9/10 of a second, but the problem is John Combs on slick tires, he's been following him. I think Combs is letting Crawford kind of break the spray. He's pushing water out of the way, making it an inherently drier racetrack for Combs to run on, and now he's in a pit road.
Combs coming down pit road, Crawford. Exactly, Crawford's just stuck in a whole bunch of traffic. Oh, and they're getting a little twitchy in front of him. He's going to be 3 wide coming down the front straightaway. Ben Williams on the outside. Crawford's stuck in the middle. Oh, he's getting squeezed to the middle as well. Turn one's a tight kink. Can Crawford squeeze through the middle, take the spots? It looks like he's going to be able to do his lap cars, get off the gas for him. But that's still going to hold him up ever so slightly, cost him a bit of time to the race leader.
None of these guys, by the way, are fighting each other. These are all of these cars in here are on different laps to one another. This is just lap car mayhem over here.
The amount of spread throughout the field, the mayhem, Jason Lee off the racetrack from the top 15, he's going to slide back. I mean, it's just unbelievably chaotic all throughout the field. I mean, lap cars mixed in with lead lap cars. We thought that was going to be a thing here because it's only 1 minute and 2 second lap times. As we see Barrett getting to the the right rear of Jason Lee there to the middle of the corner, spinning him out. We expected there to be lap traffic issues, but obviously the rain has thrown that on its head just completely. I mean, this is way more lap traffic than we expected these guys to have to deal with.
So we're about to get ourselves set up for the final stints of this race, and I think now would be a great time to announce what your track pick is going to end up being, because they wanted to announce that by the end of this week. Well, you've made your choice. What's your pick?
Drum roll, please. Bristol Motor Speedway. We're going to take it to a NASCAR track here next week, make it a little bit different. That's kind of my go-to, my MO. So I kind of feel like putting some of the BMW M2s at Bristol, and I ran some practice laps a little bit earlier today just to kind of test it out, see if it was a decent pick. And there's a decent bit of off throttle time, so much banking in the corners that it's going to be something completely different than what we see at most of these road courses, right? Not a lot of banking at the road courses. Bristol Motor Speedway, what, 36 degrees of banking? I mean, it's going to be a totally different test next week.
Now, are we talking? Well, this is 2 weeks from now, actually. Sorry, this is week 4. You're week 6. Now, here's the big question: is Is it single or double pit roads?
Single. There's too many, for me, there's too many issues with the double pit roads where, you know, if you're on the front pit road, you just have an advantage under the caution periods. Right? Oh, Ron Wolf getting
Straighten him
into
out.
Carson Catlin. Yeah, he did a good job straightening him out. Not too bad. Basically just a bump and run. I like it as we're talking about Bristol. That fits pretty nicely. But yeah, I think the, I just think a single pit road eliminates some of the BS that can happen whenever, you know, you go racing at a place like that. You know, a caution flag comes out. I've been burned by it. If you're pitting on the back straightaway because you qualified outside the top 20 or didn't lay down a qualifying time, you just lose spots every single time down pit road under caution. So I feel like the single pit road takes that BS out of it, since we don't have the coding quite right on iRacing to be able to have double for green flags and single pit road for yellows. So I think that's just going to take some of the crap out of it, and hopefully they'll put on a good show in 2 weeks' time. I think it'll be good. I don't know how you can make Bristol bad.
I don't know what's going to make the race better or worse, if they do have cautions or if they don't.
Well, I hope that we. Let's just say I hope that it's like a car count. Oh, your leader making a pass on pit road. Is that? Oh my goodness! Romano trying to get absolutely everything he can through pit road. I like it.
I mean, the car that was, well, that's behind him now, clearly wasn't making too many moves. I mean, Romano, he wants to go, right? And that car's just taking his leisurely time. I mean, you gotta go if you want to win, right?
Yeah, the pit road, you know, speed doesn't start until this yellow gun up here. So go ahead and get everything you can through the pit entrance. Romano doing everything he can to just make sure that he keeps the lead. And, you know, he's in the tight race with Cawford because Cawford's on the wet tires. Romano's going to have to take more fuel. He had to get everything he could on the pit road sequence. Unfortunately, still probably lost time to compared to what Cawford will, but he did everything he could to mitigate the time loss.
Alex Cawford leads the way. Now, 0.4 of a second ahead of Aaron Thacker. Oh boy, that gap has just come down quickly. Look at Aaron Thacker now just a little ways behind. I wonder if Cawford, because it doesn't make sense to me how he was at 1.2 seconds faster than all these guys on wet weather tires, but now all of a sudden Thacker just said a lap that was a second quicker. I wonder if he's trying to save some fuel to minimize the time in pit road here.
Well, here comes Cawford. He's going to cut it pretty close here. Coming down just the lap after Romano. Going to be interesting to see how much fuel does he have to take compared to Romano. Can Romano get out in front of him? That's the big thing. I think Cawford is still going to be behind Romano, but will Romano be able to hang on to that gap, right? It was about 6.5, 7 seconds whenever he came down pit road. How much is that going to come down through the pit sequence?
Babcock and Carson Catlin are exchanging blows. As Babcock's going to be able to pull clear, Catlin will pick up the 13th place spot. And Alvarez off the road again. He'll rejoin right between Corey Barrett and Jeremy Castro. So right now the furthest battle of the racetrack between Barrett and Alvarez for 8th.
Cawford cut the gap significantly, by the way. It was 7 seconds before the pit stop. It's less than 2 seconds. Romano's 17.9, 18 seconds off the race lead. Cawford's 19.3, so it's a 1.3 second gap between Cawford and Romano for what should be the race win. A little bit later, after the front two end up coming down pit road, talking about Blevins and Cameron. But looking at the weather, I've been talking this whole time about, hey, we're going to get a gap at some point. We're going to get a gap at some point. Well, guess what just happened to the weather radar? All of a sudden, more rain just formed out of absolutely nowhere into that gap, perfectly right where the racetrack is going to be. So we're not going to get a gap. It's going to be raining the rest of this race.
And Romano, critically, did not take tires on that stop. It was fuel only, so he is still running on the same slicks as when he started racing action this afternoon. I want to point out about how unusual the weather is for this race, because when we were looking at the weather forecast entering today, we weren't expecting any rain. The highest amount of chance for rain was 11% halfway through the main event. It wasn't even supposed to start raining until well after the main event. And well, all of a sudden, here we are. It's barely stopped raining the whole time. Now, it hasn't been a hard rain. It's been a very sprinkly-ish rain, which has kind of kept this race right at the changeover point. It's made it real interesting to watch.
Well, I got to be honest. iRacing's nailed the realism with that, right? Because I live an hour and a half away from the track. And I can tell you right now, the weather is just like this. It tells you one thing, and then you get spitting rain for about 2 hours whenever it looked like you weren't going to get anything, or just maybe a little bit. So it's pretty realistic, I'll be honest.
Austin Tucker putting Alex Crawford under fire here off the road goes McColgan just to get the heck out of the way. Tucker gonna sweep through, takes a spot away from Crawford as he got caught behind Evan Campbell.
How about Austin Tucker? Is he on the slick still? In that 243?
Sir.
My goodness, it's just so weird. The track is going through these just weird changes where the rain is so light that a dry line starts forming a little bit better to where it's better than the wet tires, but then the rain picks back up a little bit and then becomes better for the wet tires, and it's just a seesaw that we're seeing back and forth. Like you said, the weather has just kept this race on a razor's edge the entire time. Tucker's now pulling away from Crawford, and he looks quicker than Romano.
And just like that, 4-car fight for second. Once again, Romano, Cameron, Tucker, Crawford all under a blanket and ready to do battle here. Shane Cameron and Austin Tucker are absolutely hauling the mail right now. The 74 and the 243 are just going at it here as they try to get something sorted for these final few laps.
I believe Cameron still has to make that pit stop, right? So he's just kind of in these guys' way at this point. Now, obviously, Cameron not doing anything wrong. He's on the lead lap. He doesn't have the blue flags. He doesn't have to get out of the way. But if you're a guy like Austin Tucker, knowing that he's got to come down pit road, you definitely don't want to be shoved off the racetrack like that. Tucker making the momentum towards Romano, but just trying to go around the outside of Shane Cameron and ran out of room.
Meanwhile, Babcock, Wright, Clayton, it out amongst each other. This is for 13th on the racetrack. 25 seconds are left in this caution window, and then we are going to be finding ourselves running green to the end. One code 60 in the early stages, and it looks like that's all we're going to get.
15 minutes to go in this one. Then I'm making a move on Chris Bright there, and then down into turn number 1 side by side. Clayton trying to pick up a couple positions. Looks like he's going to be able to do it. Excuse me, one of those was a lap car, but Clayton still picked up a spot on right, it looked like, through there. Number 9 doing a good job after starting further back in the pack. Started back in 35th, gotten himself up to 13th so far tonight. So good run from Clayton from the back.
Jumping back up front as Coffer gets around Cameron, so does Tucker. Tucker going to give Coffer a shove here down the pit straight as we rocket it towards turn number 1. Alex Coffer trying to see if he can hang on. Oh, Tucker gets into the door, and that's going to send Tucker out wide. Loses to Coffer, loses to Cameron, and John Combs takes away second from both of them, all 3 of them.
Crawford went off the racetrack too, so Crawford just lost a good chunk of time all the way back to 7th place. What in the world happened to Crawford after the initial contact? It looked like he would have been fine, but he ended up driving himself off the road as well.
Holy cow, I mean, this is just picking up. Now Shane Cameron's under fire. I think the wet weather tires have started to go away here, because now the dry tires are just on it. Austin Tucker on slicks, battling with Cameron on the wets. And it doesn't look like Cameron's got much for him.
Cameron on the outside trying to pinch him down. I think Cameron might have came down a little bit earlier. He might have had the wet tires a little bit beforehand. He might not have that pit stop left to go, but he is struggling mightily. Aaron Thacker looking to the inside now. Thacker, though, 1 lap down. Or, excuse me, no, he's up in the 5th place position now after passing Cameron. Missed him on the ticker. Thacker making the pass down into turn number 1. I think you're right. I think the wet tires are just gone. And, that's one thing we didn't really think about over the course of the long race, right? If you took the tires so early, the wet tires do wear out relatively quickly, especially whenever the track is not super wet. And obviously, it's just damp right now with the consistent spatter of rain. And they might have just reached that point where they're just no good anymore. Cameron, Crawford both slipping back outside of the top 5, while the top 5 are all now slick tire runners.
Kyle Blevins finally bails out to pit road from the race lead. That'll hand it over to now Giovanni Romano. Tucker looking to pick up the 3rd place spot as he and Thacker will battle it out for the final podium position this afternoon. What a crazy race this has been, but this race has been phenomenal. Shane Cameron also forced to yield in the closing stages.
Kyle Blevins finally coming down pit road. Brooks Clayton had a bit of a moment there. He's going to lose a couple positions. We were just talking good about him a couple moments ago. Crawford picking off Blevins as he was in pit road. So Coffer getting back into the top 5 after he had a few moments, just a couple laps ago. And actually Cameron having to come down pit road as well from the top 10. So he actually did have that pit stop. But now it's just all about, can Combs run down Romano? 6.4 seconds. I think it's going to take a pretty big mistake from your race leader for Combs to bridge that gap.
So down to the third, battle for third here. Approaching the final 10 minutes of your 1-hour feature event. And what a solid night of racing we have had so far. Shockingly, not a lot of big pileups like I was expecting to see. Only a couple of odd single car spins. I think the lower speed nature of this track has really kind of helped bring the incident count down for a change when it gets all wet like this.
Yeah, and also, this is a racetrack that has a lot of runoff, right? And it's not, good runoff. Now, I think it is because it's grass. I think that that's the better type of runoff rather than a bunch of straight concrete or asphalt on the exits of the road. But the racetrack is really wide in a lot of sections of it, especially these big sweeping corners that we have littered throughout the track. And then if you do make a mistake, you're sliding off into the grass where nobody's really going to be running. So I just kind of think it leads itself to, or the track lends itself to having, solo car incidents or 2-car incidents. Clayton getting pushed out wide by Kasich there, but I think that's helped keep the major carnage down as well. The track is just wide enough, and there's plenty of runoff for a spinning car to go to where it's not that big of a deal.
Brooks Clayton, Jake Kasich, trying to see if they can get something sorted. Thacker did just go off the road. That will leave him vulnerable. That is a lap car getting down the inside. But now Kasich trying to fend off Clayton. Clayton once again, this time has the inside in turn 4. Tries to break a bit of 5. If he can hold the inside through 6, might have something for him here. And he sure does, as it's going to be Brooks Clayton to get around Jake Kasich. And that will put us with 10 minutes to go.
Clayton has just been so good through this race. I know we just saw him make a mistake a little while ago. As we see the 79 off the racetrack here, trying to get it righted. But Clayton has done a fantastic job working his way up from the back of the pack, almost into the top 10 at this point, riding in the 11th place spot. I wouldn't count him out of it for the top 10.
He's been stopped for almost a full minute in that section, by the way, and this is why. So he initially went around here, and I kid you not, he has been stuck for over a lap, trying to get himself sorted.
The field is spread so much, I guess it's just kind of tough to find it. Oh, our leader just got turned. Our leader, Romano, just got turned off the racetrack. He's gone off into the dirt through the last couple of corners. Giovanni Romano getting punted, and John Combs takes the lead.
Huge dramas up front as Romano gets sent off, almost certainly by a lap car, and it was Scott Fleming. Tracked out wide, and I think got into the 99.
I can't tell if Romano cut his nose off like he wasn't there or if Fleming came out wide. I mean, it was kind of 50-50 between the two. I was looking at a different monitor. All of a sudden, Romano saw him sideways.
No, I think that's on Romano.
Scott had the nose in front, drifted up a little wide, but it was in a position to where Romano could see it happening, and then Fleming stopped the drift, right? It felt like he had kind of established his line through that corner at that point, and Romano just pinched him ever so slightly too much, especially with that big of a lead. You got to be thinking a little
holy
bit.
Cow, where are you going?
Aaron Thacker, I think his brake pedal stopped working there for a second. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because that was that was crazy from Thacker.
Rejoins the track and gonna immediately door Alex Crawford. Boy, it is getting heated on the racetrack right now. The rain will not be cooling anything off. Seems like fires are only igniting rather than being put out.
To Romano, though, I think you just got to be thinking a little bit more race preservation with that big of a lead. Give the lap car a little bit more room, even if the wreck isn't completely your fault. Just give him an extra lane, give him an extra lane or two, just to absolutely make sure he's got that big of a gap. But the thing is, Romano's not out of this. Even after that spin, because of the big lead he had, he's only a second and a half off of John Combs right now. I mean, Romano's still got just as good of a chance as anybody to win this thing.
Look at this.
Thacker, jumping it through the infield there as the as the asphalt turns to grass, trying to come back at Coffer.
went for the over-under, didn't go his way. Thacker went wide off the racetrack. Colbert retook it. Now Thacker's trying to get all over the back bumper, looking for the inside now into turn number 5. Battle is on for the 4th place spot. This time Thacker won't overshoot turn 5. And Colbert will maintain his run in 6th for the time being.
This has been one of the best races we've broadcasted. I love the rain. I love the Tempest system. iRacing, you need to do more with this. I mean, it's already fantastic, but I mean, any little bit that you can do to add to it. I mean, goodness, they have absolutely knocked this thing out of the park. Every time we get rain for the beer league, it's one of the best races we've seen.
I want snow just for the Canadian races.
Can we get the Snowmobile 500?
You mean the International 500? That's an actual race.
Yeah. Well, I know it's an actual thing. I just didn't know what the name was. I just knew that they drove snowmobiles for 500 miles. I would love
500. There you go. Yeah, let's get that in there.
Please.
Give us the World Championship Snowmobile Derby. I'd love that. Oh, off the road. Gonna go the 816. Thacker swings out wide. Same situation as what happened a lap ago. Trying to go at Colbert and way overestimated himself.
I think Thacker spent more time in the air than he has on the tarmac over the last 3 laps. I mean, how in the world is the 816 still in this race with how many times that we've seen the 4 tires off of the ground?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, this is insanity here.
I'm loving it.
I was wondering if you just completely lost your mind there for a hot minute.
I mean, I kind of have after just watching all of this. If I just randomly break down into the McDonald's jingle, then I think that there's a little bit of mind loss for sure. I'm definitely losing mental capacity as this thing goes on, but I'm still loving it.
Just over 5 minutes to go. Roughly 6 to 7 laps. Sorry, not 6 to 7 laps. Roughly 4 to 5 laps, sorry. Might be 6. We actually might get 6 laps in still. But boy, it has been a time. Oh no! Oh no, Thacker!
No!
I think Thacker's just had a packet loss.
A packet loss?
No.
That's a packet loss.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you credit for that. Carlton, Verhulst, Clayton, all scrambling at each other. They're fighting it out for 8th, 9th, 10th. Down the inside goes Brooks Clayton, takes the spot away from Verhulst, clears himself across the nose in 3.
Goodness, the racing just doesn't stop. And even for the race lead, Romano is starting to bridge that gap to John Combs. 4.5 minutes left on the clock. And that gap is down to half a second. So Romano, after that spin, completely throwing this race away, he might be able to get it back. Coming down into turn number 2, he's all over the back bumper of Combs again.
Holy cow. I mean, we're not done yet. Alvarez just got around Alex Cofford. John Combs now has got Giovanni Romano right behind him, so we got to fight for the lead that's picking up as well in the middle of all of this. 4 minutes to go. Can the Canadian take back his win against John Combs?
This has been ridiculous. I mean, Romano, what a drive to even get himself back into firing distance, right? And to be able to give himself an opportunity to win this race after making the mistake with the lap car. Maybe Fleming could have given him some more room. Maybe Romano could have given Fleming some more room. But nonetheless, an accident happened, an accident occurred. Romano fell 1.5 seconds behind Combs, and he has clawed that gap back down. 3.5 minutes to go, thinking 4 laps left for John Combs to hang on.
Desperately trying to get something, anything sorted for these guys here as he tries to fight his way through. Giovanni Romano, does he have the momentum that he needs to take home the race win this afternoon? He has gotten a lot of wins over his beer league career. He is trying to add to the record. He took win number 20 way back when, and now can he go for 21?
Combs still hanging on out of the chicane, down into 6 and 7. The kink of 6, now the sweeper of 7, and then down into turn number 8. Long sweeping right-hand corner. He's hanging on the inside of the racetrack. Oh, pushing Romano out wide. Romano's going to lose a little bit of ground coming up to the last corner as Combs is trying to get around a lap car. Lap car's going to give him plenty of room. Oh, but Combs drives it off the racetrack. Combs just completely throws it away, trying to get around the lap traffic.
It's not over, though. I mean, Romano messed up once. He could easily mess up again. Remember, still on slick tires. Both of them are. So there's still a chance here for this race to pick up further. 3 laps to go. Battles on 7th, 8th, 9th. Still all under fire. Blevins is wide. And that's going to let Carlton through to pick up the number 7 spot. Brooks Clayton trying to make something with him, but he gets loose.
Oh, it doesn't matter where you look on the racetrack. Something is going on everywhere. Battle for 7th is absolutely heating up. Carlton able to get through. Clayton able to get one of those spots back right there. Able to get back up into the 8th place spot as Blevins looks to be struggling in that number 248 coming around the last corner.
A lot of drivers still seeing who's got something in store for each other as racing action enters the die stages on the day. John Combs is closing. The gap comes back down to 6/10 of a second, extends to 7, but if he can keep this pace up, he can still get it with 2 laps to go.
Yeah, 2 laps left. It's going to take a minor mistake from Romano or him catching some lap traffic, but for the first time tonight, I'm seeing some sunlight on the front straightaway. This is the first time I'm seeing the sun peek through the clouds. Still some rain coming down on a lot of the racetrack, but maybe a dry line starting to form in some sections. Maybe Combs can find it before Romano.
Levin's going to throw away a battle for 9th as he'll let Ryan Verhulst take away. It becomes between Verhulst and others. Oh boy, we got a lot of cars going off the road here in turn 5, so a huge tangle up here. And there is the battle for the lead approaching the turn 5-6 complex. Combs is so good in turn 5, but he's going to mess it up there. I think that might be game over if Romano can just hang on for another lap.
Yeah, Romano doesn't have too much lap traffic directly in front of him. I mean, he has a good chunk, but I think that the race is going to end before he catches a good bit of them. Darren Bailly right in front of him, though, as we're checking a replay of Tyler Carlton, seeing exactly what happened to the 45, and he just slid that thing right around, coming around the last corner. He had just taken 7th, and he's going to give it right back up to a couple of other guys. But now, I didn't think Romano was going to catch this lap traffic, but the lap traffic's just so slow that now all of a sudden, coming to the white flag, he's got 3 or 4 cars he's going to have to pass on this last lap.
Oh boy, Barry Piper, Matthew Dupuis, Scott Fleming are all in the pit road. Now, I'm willing to bet that's not for fuel. I think that's going to be as a result of hitting the incident limit, but you never quite know, right? 1 second left on the clock, and game over. All right. Whatever happens on this lap is how this race is going to pan out. Combs with his 6.5 tenths, still closing the gap.
What can he do for the last couple of corners? Does he get a little bit of help from the lap traffic? Combs deeper down to the corner. Romano trying to set it up for the exit of 5 rather than the entrance of 4. Combs runs it a little bit more narrow, continuing to close the gap. The back end steps ever so slightly out for Combs. It's just all about, does Romano catch any more lap traffic?
He's going to catch 1 more car, but the question is it going to be too little or will it be too late? Romano hard on the brakes into the last 2 corners. He's going to be held up by the 751. Alex Harrison pulls aside, gives him all the room to work with. And Giovanni Romano, 80th start, 21 wins in the beer league as Romano screams home to take another.
Heartbreak for John Combs over the course of the last couple laps. He had an opportunity there at the end, just ran wide. He got put off by the lap car that was going in narrow to the last corner with about 3 or 4 laps remaining. And Romano was there to pick up the pieces after he had thrown it away just a couple laps beforehand. What a drive from Romano coming from the back to the front.
Romano going to extend his lead for the most wins by any beer league driver in their career. The only one to get over 20 thus far. A huge milestone for Romano, while Brooks Clayton and Ryan Verhulst will scrap it out for 6, and that'll go the way of Clayton.
What a race that was. What a freaking race. One of the best that we have called in the beer league, man. I mean, from the start to the finish, we didn't know what was gonna happen. Towards the middle of that race, I thought Crawford was sitting in the best position, putting himself on the wet tires, but the track just never got wet enough for them to be far and away better than the slicks. And then all of a sudden, even with the rain still coming down, the wet tires wore off. Crawford ran out of tire, and those slick tires came back, ended up being the fastest cars. Holy cow, down to turn 1. But, I mean, it just was topsy-turvy the entire way, and you just never knew until the last lap who was really going to win this one.
I'm going to beg to differ. The wet tires were better at one point on the racetrack. Remember, Coffer was picking off cars left, right, front, and center on wet weather tires on the restart. He was lapping 2 seconds quicker. The problem was the track didn't stay wet enough.
I still don't even know if it's the track not staying wet enough. I mean, the rain's still coming down, right? Like, the track's still wet.
It's not coming down as intense as it was earlier.
You're right, but I just feel like the wet tires just burned off a whole lot quicker. It wasn't wet enough to be able to keep the temperature down on the tires, and they just overheated way too quick compared to everybody else. To your point, they were absolutely better for 5, 10, maybe 15 laps, but for the majority of that race, they were either dead even or just off of the slick tires, which is a big surprise for me.
Well, we get a chance to take a look at all of our official post-race results here. This time by Giovanni Romano takes win number 21 ahead of John Combs and Austin Tucker for the podium. Antonio Alvarez finishes his race in 4th, 28 seconds back, with Ron Wolf in 5th, Verholt in 6th, Crawford 7th, and it's Kyle Blevins, Tyler Carlton, and Chris Bright for the top 10.
Finishing in 11th was Shane Cameron, Brooks Clayton in 12th, Chris Flams in 13th, Jake Kasich 14th, Jason Lee rounds out the top 15 with Tyler Augustino, Carson Catlin, Tanner Klein, Corey Barrett, and Alexander Bueller rounding out the top 20.
From there, 21st place is going to hold Justin Hall along with Kyle Smith and Jeremy Castro, Jordan Babcock, Ringo Harrison, Darren Bai, Evan Campbell, Adam Joseph Ilhot, Tyler Viennan, and Ryan Murphy for the top 30.
Finishing in 31st is Barry Piper, Scott Fleming in 32nd, David Elkin 33rd, Matthew Dupuis in 34th, Greg Beckman 35th, and then rounding out the field, we had Aaron Thacker, Blake Gambrill, Austin McColgan, Ben Williams, Ethan Condi, Eric Cronenberg, and Adam Klein.
What a wild race that we have this afternoon. An absolutely stellar drive from all involved. We'll get the chance to give a chit-chat here to all of the folks that finished up on top this afternoon. We'll look to kick it off first and foremost with one Giovanni Romano. That was actually right after his spin, so we'll cut back in here right after he's gone back onto the racetrack. I don't know, might be sore feelings here for Romano to show that when he were interviewing the winner of the night, but we'll bring Giovanni Romano into the broadcast booth. And well, Gio, first off, just want to say congratulations, 21 wins. You're the only driver to have done it thus far. It's a huge milestone for you, and you continue to extend your record for most wins by any beer league driver in their career.
Oh, we're keeping track of career stats. Nice. I guess we've been going along long enough now we can do that. Yeah, that was probably one of the most memorable ones. That race was really fun. Like, I think if you want sort of like a, good sample of what the iRacing weather system can do to produce a really awesome race, it was that. I was on the slicks the entire time, and I was fighting with them the entire time, especially after the restart, getting temperature in them, and then you had people going on to the wets, and there was a period of the race where the wets were faster, so it was like having to deal with people who were quicker on wets, and having to manage that, and kind of just waiting for the dry line to appear, and then once that dry line came up sort of in the last 20 minutes or so, that's when the slicks kind of started to take off, and yeah, worked out.
An absolutely great drive for you. It almost wasn't meant to be, though. You had a big fight with John Combs, and that fight came about after contact with a lapped car. What was your thoughts on the matter?
I was a little upset, but I won't be a jerk or anything. But yeah, that upset me a bit. But at the plus side, it got us a really fun battle with Johns that wouldn't have happened otherwise, and that was a really good fight, and ended up being decided by John getting into those nasty marbles on the exit of the last corner, which definitely caught me out once or twice during the race as well. You get on them and you just no grip at all whatsoever, nothing out there.
We still don't know where we're going to be racing that next week. We know the track 2 weeks from now, but we don't know next week. So what do you reckon is going to be in store for you between now and the next race up?
What's the track in 2 weeks?
2 weeks, it's going to be Bristol.
Oh, hell yeah. I ran a few test laps there because I was hoping we'd get Bristol. I think that's going to be fun. The tires also melt really, really fast, so tires might matter. I think that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. Outside of that, I don't know. I think the league could use a dry race, regardless of the track. I think a lot of people their patience is being tested by the weather. I enjoy it, but it's definitely extremely challenging. So I think let's get some nice sun out there and have a nice dry race. I think that'd be good for everyone.
I wish you the best of luck then next week. Congratulations, Giovanni Romano, on your 21st win. We'll see you once again when we go racing, well, wherever we may be next week.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Giovanni Romano, 21 wins in his beer league career, and here's the man that came so close to third. It is John Combs speaking with Austin Edstrom.
Yeah, it's John Big Sack Combs coming home with the second place finish. Unfortunately, not quite the first place finish. John, run us through what was running through your mind whenever you were coming up to that final corner. You saw the lap car kind of going shallow into it. You know, what were you thinking in that moment? And what were you thinking whenever you came off the corner in the grass?
Man, yeah, it's like when you run up on the other car, and I don't know if Evan's like trying to give space or just go slow on purpose, or if he's going to run his line. So I didn't know what he was going to do, so I tried to give some space, and then I just gave too much, and then I got into the marbles, and it was unfortunate because that was the corner. Yeah, I gave it up. Gio was hunting me down, you know, so he probably would have had it next lap or something, but I was hoping to hang on a little longer.
Well, John, you know, you kind of got that opportunity out of nowhere with Romano kind of making a mistake with the lap car himself, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the position to win that thing. But through the entire middle portion of that race, you know, it was just so frequent, you know, in the comers and goers, whether it was people on the slick tires or the people on the wet tires that were the fastest. With the rain coming down the entire time, were you surprised that the slick tires actually ended up being the better play, or were you betting on that? Well, obviously you were betting on it the entire time, being on slicks yourself, but were you surprised with the kind of interchangeability of the tires throughout the entirety of the race, how they just kind of seemed to flip-flop which ones was the best, even though the rain was coming down the whole time?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a fun part of it. At one point, I'm getting caught by the wet tire cars, and then next thing I know, I'm lapping them. So yeah, it was kind of just back and forth. I definitely was hoping that the rain would die down, and it seemed to go in our favor, which we just got lucky on that one. You know, we can't see the radar, so I'm just kind of crossing my fingers, hoping. I'm thinking a tire change is just going to take too long, not worth it. Let's roll the dice.
Well, John, coming up to the end of that one, was there starting to kind of be a dry line forming? Like, what were you really looking for out on the racetrack? Like I said, the rain was coming down the whole time, but you were on slick tires. So what were you searching for out there? How were you finding the grip necessary to be able to run so fast and being up in second place at the end of this?
Yeah, just looking for the dry line. I was trying it out. Some of it wasn't visible to me, but I would try a different little spot, maybe just from passing someone and realizing, wow, I got that done a little faster. Let me try that again next time. And so, yeah, I found some surprising spots that saved some time.
Well, John, congratulations on the second place finish. Looking forward to seeing if you can make that one spot better in the coming weeks whenever we go racing again.
Well, thanks.
All righty, that was your second place finisher, John Combs. Heck of a run from John tonight to be able to bring it home into the top three. Next up, Nolan is going to be talking to Austin Tucker.
Austin, you come home third place this afternoon, and boy, what an interesting race this afternoon. Dry tires throughout the entirety of the podium. It was really kind of 50-50 between what was going to be faster, right? Wets or dries the entire way through this race. What influenced your decision on going for the one stop and staying on slicks?
Yeah, man, that was an absolute blast of a race. So at the beginning, I think we all knew pretty well that slicks were going to be a little bit faster, but there's more rain coming. And so that caution really threw a wrench in some of the strategy. And I wasn't sure if you could, because with the rain, we were using a little bit less fuel, so I didn't know if you could pit there and then make it to the end on fuel. So I was a little bit. I was coming up to the pit entry right as the Code 69 was coming out, so I just stayed out. And so yeah, when we restarted, the wets were definitely faster, but I knew the rain was going to kind of ease off, and we weren't that far over the edge. They may have been half a second to a second faster in the middle of the race, but they fell off. So Crawford was on the wet tires from the caution to the end, and me and a few others were able to get back past them. And yeah, you could just see on the time sheet a lot of the wet tires were falling off the last 15 laps or so.
An extremely intense race this afternoon. Some drivers seem to have loved it. Some drivers seem to have differing opinions on how this race panned out. But definitely one of the most unique beer league races that we've seen. Are more of these races in store for us in the near future?
First of all, yeah, absolutely. This was one of the more unique races, and I had a blast. If we could run this every week, I would. As far as if they're coming up, we just generate a random forecast based on, typical seasonal weather, and what we get's what we get. Tonight we only had like an 11% chance of rain, but it came just enough to make it a little bit damp, but not enough to need the wet tires really.
Well, who knows? Maybe it'll be rainy, wet, maybe it'll be dry, but we go racing next week, wherever that may be. Austin, congratulations on third place tonight, and best of luck in your evolving championship as we'll go racing once again next week.
Thank you, Nolan. I'll go on and go ahead and spin for next week.
Austin Tucker to Durham, North Carolina comes home third this afternoon. And, well, Austin, we can fill the air a little bit while they go through that little wheel spin, and we can see where things are going to be at for the next week. What do you think? Man, holy cow, what a race.
Well, like I was saying at the end of it, I think it was one of the best ones that we've called, right? I mean, it was just topsy-turvy the whole way. We didn't know exactly what was going on the entire time, with different people being on different tires, the tires being, different speeds throughout the entire race, whether which one was faster and which one was slower. I mean, just the fall off from the wet tires at the very end of that race was just so fascinating to watch. I don't feel like the track got super dry, but obviously, like Combs was saying, he was starting to find a dry line through some of these corners and starting to figure it out, but we just kept seeing the rain coming down. I thought the wet tires would continue to get better, but towards the end of that race, man, Cawford fell off of a cliff. A couple of other guys started just absolutely dropping anchor and just were not able to keep up with the guys on the slicks, which was interesting to see with the rain coming down. I mean, I don't know if you can have a more unpredictable race than what we just got.
I can't really think of one either, apart from one being entirely in the wet, and that's only unpredictable because you don't know who's going to go spearing off the racetrack on a pile of standing water that's in the middle of the dark, right? I mean, that's the only way I could think that this could have been any more unpredictable, but still a long way for this championship. There's a lot still to be had before this championship gets decided. It's going to be I think interesting is the right word to see how this one's going to pan out. I mean, week 5, we're at the halfway point of the season just now. Next week, Sonoma Raceway at the long layout. That we haven't been to that track in a while with the beer league. It's been it's got to be at least 3 or 4 seasons.
So is that with the carousel?
Yeah, that's with the carousel.
Okay, interesting. I think that'll actually be really fun with these BMW M2s. Honestly, I think the carousel will add a little bit of a challenge. It's going to be, predominantly single lane through that corner, but I think it's going to be, it's going to open up passing zones into the next couple of corners after that, right? Heavy braking zone after the carousel, after you kind of go down that long runway. So I think that's going to open up a lot of passing zones. The S's are going to be extremely interesting to see who can get through there the best throughout the entirety of that race. And I like it because that means that we go from Birmingham to a NASCAR road course to a NASCAR oval, back to back to back. So I'm a big fan of that. I like it.
In fact, the last time we broadcasted a race there was in one of the first ever races we ever did for this league in the first season with the Ford Mustang. So yeah, it's been a hot minute since we've been down to wine country, and boy, that race is going to be something spectacular as well. Before we get to all of that, we still got to get through the rest of the week leading up to that point, and right now we're in a period with shows every single night of the week. Tomorrow night, the Speed Cup Series kicks off with the Eliminator, a qualifying race to see who starts where for the Daytona National Speedway opener coming on up next week. The PRA Rev Limit Workshop Pro Series out in Avondale, Arizona, and Phoenix this Friday. On Saturday, the SRA IL Truck Series has the Flat Out 200 at Bristol Motor Speedway, followed by 170 laps around America's home for motorsports with the ASRL Xfinity Series presented by Purple Haze Autosport for round number 2 on Sunday nights. Monday is headed up by the High Time Race League MFRD Premier Series. They're in the New Hampshire Motor Speedway for round number 19. It's the first race of the round of 8. With the OMSRL Cup Series on Tuesday, going to the Keystone State for a trip around the Tricky Triangle. All of this and more coming up on Greenfly TV. If you want to find out more about who we are, what we can offer you, check us out today at www.greenflytv.com. My name is always Noel Rampel alongside Austin Edstrom. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week in Wine Country.